Good evening and welcome to the Saratoga Springs Planning Commission meeting for November 10th. We're waiting on one member, so we have a quorum, and she's supposed to be here in the next few minutes. So as soon as she arrives, we will start the meeting at that time. Thank you. Okay. Our fourth member of the commission has made it, so we were able to start our meeting. I've asked Commissioner McConkey to lead us in the pledge. Commissioner McConkey.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a couple of members of our commission who are absent this evening. But we do have a quorum available, so we are able to continue with our meeting this evening. The next item is for public input. Time has been set aside for any person to express ideas, concerns, comments, questions, or ideas that are not listed as public hearing on the agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. If anyone has any public comments that are for items that are not listed as a public hearing, there's only one item. Item number 4 is a business item, so that's the only one that we will not be taking public comment on this evening. So if you'd like to make comment on that item as a public, please do that now. Okay, I'll go ahead and close the public comment at this time, and we'll move on to item number 4, business item, Home Depot site plan located approximately southeast of Lake Drive and Exchange Drive. Jordan Sheets, Kindly Horn and Associates as the applicant, and Gina Grand Prix is going to be presenting that for this evening. And if the applicant's here, you can join us at the table. Okay.
This is Jordan Sheets here.
Okay.
Good evening, commissioners. I am presenting to you Home Depot. I'm sure everybody is very excited about this project. This is going to be on Saratoga Springs Commercial Plat F. Last couple planning commissions ago, you saw that before you, and this is going to be on that large parcel, that large lot. It is lot 608. It consists of 10.25 acres. The address will be, once it's recorded, 1226 North Exchange Drive. Dan Schmidt is, I had that with WPI, so it is Jordan Sheets. I didn't change that on this, but it should be all right in your packet. Again, this is the site. It is zoned regional commercial. It is across the street from the State Liquor Store and Tractor Supply, and surrounding areas will be regional commercial development, retail stores, restaurants, stuff like that. Just to give you some oversight, some site information. So the building area, the total building area, including the garden center, will be 136,107,000 square feet, and total lot coverage is 30%. The building itself is 107,891 square feet, with the mezzanine or garden center will be 28,215. And so, or 16, sorry. With that, basing the 4 parking stalls per 1,000 square feet is based off of just the building itself, not the garden center. And so that requires them to have 432 stalls, and I counted every single one of them, and so they do come to 432 stalls. They did have to do some finagling to get that fit in there, and they did a great job in doing that. So it just gives, in your packet, you'll see this on the site, on the site plan, and it just gives the breakdown of what those parking stalls will be, handicapped, online pickup and so forth. Landscaping, let's see, this doesn't give landscaping, so we'll get to that. So just to kind of go into the site plan. So as you can see, the parking, there are some parallel parking over to the west, and then they do have, we did not count some of those stalls that are X'd out, all the stalls that are X'd out there on the west side. Those are for rentals, equipment rental, and that kind of thing. And then the back, and then the bottom portion is the detention basin. Then you have the front. Again, some of the X stalls indicate online parking, online pickup, and, pro parking, that type of thing, and then the cart corrals. You have your outdoors displays where they've marked down per our code, right there in the front where they'll have those. They've also marked out seasonal sales in the parking lot, which they'll use there. And then the landscaping. So landscaping, they meet actually more than 21% on this particular site because they are using some of the detention basin that is going to be installed with the subdivision in their calculations. So other portions of the detention basin will be included in other calculations of for other lots for landscaping, but this does meet our 20% requirement for landscaping. Again, just shows the landscaping there on the west side. And then the elevations. So this picture here, they did send an update on the elevations, and I gave you a copy of that. It is different than the rear elevation is what is different than what is in your packet. And so they just did some changes on that. The elevation in your packet shows one big gray section where they've decided to break that up. And so some of the trellises they've excluded, but it does meet our code. And they did this, Home Depot requested that because of the racking that they have outlined. Those little orange lines that are on that rear elevation, that's their racking. So for some of their storage supplies. And so they wanted to make sure that that would work and flow for them. So we went through a lot of things to get this elevation to where it's at. So I believe they meet that. Just to give you a breakdown on the materials. So you have the gray and the tan. Those are engineered architectural steel panels. And then you've got your brick. The orange is just an accent band. And then you've got some of the plaster, the brown plaster. So you've got a mixture of materials on that. And it does go different sides. I kind of threw this up there. This is the garden fencing. And so this is the portion 10 feet from the ground up is this metal mesh. And then above that, and that's one thing we're working on, which you'll want to put that in as a condition. I forgot to do that. But to meet our code, they're working on an alternative for the top portion. So it is coated, it is vinyl coated chain link, but because we don't allow chain link in our code, they do need to do, they proposed possibly a mesh, right, to put like a mesh, a fine material mesh to put on those panels to help meet our code, to soften that surface. The mesh on the bottom is more for security purposes, and so they needed the smaller metal mesh. Other than that, staff recommends approval with the conditions, findings and conditions in the staff report with the addition to meet our fencing code. Any questions?
Thank you, Gina. Does the applicant have anything you would like to add?
Really that, I was talking earlier, I live just 3 minutes down the road, and that a Home Depot is very well, like a home improvement store is very well needed in this area.
Yes.
It's been good working with Saratoga and trying to move this forward. But
Okay.
that makes a need.
I will go ahead and open this up to the commission for questions and comments. Commissioner Barton.
Mine's really a question, how long does it take to get it done?
They plan on moving as soon as they get construction drawings, accepted construction drawings is in the middle of December sometime.
Okay, and I appreciate you talking about the fencing, because I wasn't sure how that was going to happen, but it sounds like you guys have already talked about it. Okay, that was my only thing.
Thank you, Commissioner Barton. Commissioner Kilgore.
Since this is an administrative process, I always ask the applicant if they're willing to comply with all the conditions in the planning staff packet.
Yeah, we are working with Gina to comply with the conditions.
Great, thank you. There was, what, so the condition, is the condition not to, is it to not allow the vinyl fencing, or is?
No, it's it's to follow our fencing code.
Follow
So our
the-
code, our fencing code does not allow chain link. This is a vinyl coated chain link. So there needs to be something to soften that.
Okay, follow fencing code, all right.
And that's, yes, and that's the top 10 feet. So the bottom 10 feet is
Top 10,
this here. So yeah, so you can see the finer on the finer mesh, which I show a picture of here on the bottom.
oh, now okay.
Is on the bottom 10 feet. And then there's that 10 feet on the top, which is a larger chain link. It's a 2-inch chain link, but it's vinyl coated. So, yeah, so they'll work on that and to meet our code. I mean, we made everybody else do that.
Okay.
Associated use with that.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter?
Yeah,
Never mind.
okay. Yeah, because I think the code just simply says no. Yeah. And then that picture of the front facade, is that, not to say that I haven't been to Home Depot in a while, but is that a new look? Or is that pretty standard?
This is a metal building, so this is kind of like to meet code with Saratoga, they have gone through ways to find and get those architectural metal panels to meet code. So it looks different from like you would see at the Home Depot over in American Fork, where that one's a brick concrete building. This one here does, in my opinion, going through the process, definitely looks a lot sharper than other Home Depot stores that I've seen.
I was thinking that it looks really good, and I don't remember noticing that before at American Fork. No, I mean, not, you know,
Are you a Lowe's guy?
We have higher standards.
Yeah, not to disparage, but it just looks more, I don't know, it looks, freshened up.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure if that was just me, because I haven't been to one in a while, but it looks good, it looks good. There were, let's see, on page, my eyes. Sorry. So on page 7, there were a couple of, in the 19.05 supplemental regulations, there were a couple of to be determines, but it said in the findings with the site plan. So if this is the site plan, when would it be?
Remind me of which one it is, because I
Okay.
because I know the ones to be determined were the lighting, was in the lighting
No, it's,
section of the code.
no, it's actually probably not even relevant. It's in the automobile repair minor
Oh,
and special standards and considerations governing particular uses. So it's probably not.
yeah, and that's not going to be this specific instance. That was probably because I pulled it from Plat F,
Okay.
the checklist from Plat F, which that will be determined with each site plan.
Okay.
So I apologize about that.
Oh, no problem. And then in, this time it's page 19. Oh, 19 in the packet, so it's page 18 for this particular one. There are several complies, or can complies rather.
Yeah, and most of those related to the lighting. So, and they have given details on the parking lot lights. What those are in reference to are, let me go back here, and it looks like they're working on that. So it's not on this elevation. On the previous elevation, they had lighting that was over 20 feet going into the garden center. And our code doesn't allow parking lot lights to be that high, and anything attached to the building or this enclosure would need to be no higher than that, or at 16 feet on the exterior of the building. Now, they can put those on the interior of the building. We don't care how tall they are, so long as they're not above that fencing, and so, or that enclosure. And so that's what they can comply with. They just haven't been able to provide us with those yet. They're still working on getting those details, the manufacturing details on their exterior lights, and so forth. So
Okay.
they will get that to us before we give them approval.
Okay, and then a couple of these had to do with the parking lot hierarchy of circulation. Oh, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Never mind. Sorry.
That's okay.
there's a green highlighted one. You had highlighted in green about the shopping cart corral rail finish.
Yeah, so on the architectural plans, where the detail for the cart corrals, it didn't indicate a color, and our code requires that color indication, that it be a powder coated, right? I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
2 colors, right?
Not on the cart corral, I think it's a powder coated cart corral. There's a specific painting has to be indicated, and that wasn't indicated on the architectural plans. So
not a big deal.
they just need to provide us with that paint.
Great, okay.
Two out of 3 colors?
Colors. Yeah,
Okay,
it can't be just,
on the cart corral?
Shopping cart corral.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, that's just one that they need to comply with,
okay.
section of the code.
And then you had an image up of the parking spaces. I like that one. Okay, so this is just, again, me not really going.
Okay, let me back up just one more right here.
Yeah, any of those would work, because when I'm with my wife, she doesn't let me drive, and this is why. So on the north end, I'm guessing north is the top, right?
Right.
yes.
Yeah, you can see how, when you exit onto that road that's running left to right, where you have the curb, or not, well, it's where the planter is. Planters are, and then you've got the parking that's right next. Is that enough space for a car to back out without having any sight issues with the cars coming in from the road or going out? And I'm guessing it's all standard, but it just, when you look at the picture, it just looks like it's really close.
Yeah, we'd have to have them do a site triangle on that.
Yeah, that was my next note is that, does that meet like the site?
Yeah, and generally our site triangles are for landscaping.
Yeah.
And I don't believe, if we look at the landscaping islands, yeah,
They have shrubbery and stuff.
to look
And
at.
so again, it may be low enough and it may be more than enough space because we actually paced ourselves my wife and I just paced ourselves on the ground. And she goes, this is way more than enough. It's like 15 feet or something. Or no, it's 10 feet, I think. But I was thinking when I back out on the parking spaces that are right next to that, is that enough for me? If it's normal or if that's our standard, then fine. But I'm just wondering, was there any?
Answer that. So on this parking lot, some areas, those drive aisles are 24 feet wide. These ones here are 26 feet wide. As well, if you look at on the bottom of the page, there are those triangles that are dashed. Those are site triangles to help us see around the landscaping. So by looking at those and you were to just kind of put those to the north, you would see that the triangles really don't touch the curb and gutter. And so you can almost imagine that it wouldn't impact on that north boundary as well.
Okay.
But it is, this is an area that's kind of low speed. That's not really a full through street on the north side. It's got access on both sides to the future commercial parcels to the north. I kind of envision this being similar to, right over here in front of Sportsman's Warehouse now, where you've got all the parking, or in front of Smith's, in front of Seven Guys and everything like that. So Seven Brothers.
Okay. Yep. As long as it's standard, then
Yeah.
I'm fine. And then I had here, what is online parking? I just realized while you were talking about it, it's for the online orders, right? And so you could.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. And then you've got like 2 pages, I think, one
This one?
side of it and then the other side of it. So let's see.
You mean the other side here?
Yeah, it was page, so my thing, it was page 24. Which,
Oh, okay. What is it?
I don't know what page it is for you because it's still trying to render, but anyway, there's, what is it? It's okay, I see what the C 2.01, yes, that's right. So on that one, there's one ADA parking, and then on the next page, there's like a bunch of them. And so, does it matter, as far as ADA standards go, if they're separated like that, where there's only one on that side of the building and then there's all the rest on the other side? Because I'm not familiar with the.
Entrance. So I think the other entrance, that other side is the lumber. And so the main entrance is where they're mostly located, and then where there's just one, that's the lumber
Okay.
area.
So it's not, it doesn't have to be like evenly distributed or anything like that, as long as they're as close as possible to the main entrance, that works.
Yeah.
Okay, even if we have just one off to the other side. Okay. And then you show the seasonal, I think that's that
The dark area.
that darker area, right? Okay. So do the parking spaces in the seasonal sales area count towards the overall required parking?
Yes.
Okay, so if there's seasonal stuff there, then those parking spaces won't be accessible, right?
Right.
Okay, so would
So
seasonal be like
summertime-
Christmas? Or was it
No,
more summer?
more than likely it'll be summertime.
Summertime? Okay.
Right.
Yeah, because Christmas is when you need the parking, but I guess that's not the issue. And then,
And that's one of the reasons we left it in there,
okay,
is because it's only going to be half of the year, half, maybe
right.
shorter.
And it's striped for parking because it will be used for parking when the seasonal sales displays aren't there? Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, so any site triangle concerns along the east-west road at north, so we brought that up already. And then there were some red line comments on page 36. And I was wondering, any issues with, it's like red line comment, add the design detail for the exterior wall mount lights, the garden center lighting, all that. I think.
Right, and that's in
That's what
the,
it is.
that, I put that on the
Okay.
checklist as
So
well.
no issues complying with those red lines then?
No, we're.
I mean, you're
yeah.
working through it?
Yeah, we're working with those
Okay.
conditions with Gina.
Okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. Commissioner McConkey.
Thank you. I have a list of questions. I apologize if it's a lot, but
It's okay.
since we're talking about parking, I missed the seasonal.
So it's the big grayed out area over to the east side of the parking lot.
Okay, so will that be identified?
It is, yes, well, and they have to identify it on the site plan. They don't, I mean,
Out on site? Is
out
this-
on site, it's not going to be marked off or it's not going to be striped, and they don't have to do that. I did make sure that that's how it read in the code, because even with your outdoor displays, it has to show on the site plan. So when our code enforcement officer goes out to say, hey, I don't think this is where the seasonal items are supposed to go, they're supposed to go over on the other side of the parking lot, he can pull the site plan, because that's what the only document he really has to indicate where that seasonal and outdoors display items are going to be. And so they have to indicate it on the site plan. Same with their racking in the back. Any outdoor displays have to show on their site plan.
Yeah, which is good.
Yeah.
I'm glad. I'm a little bit concerned because in especially the last 2 years over at the American Fork Home Depot, it just has absolutely exploded.
And that's why this one
I
is.
told my wife, they're probably going to say, well, that's going to now go over to the Saratoga Springs store. But my concern is that we don't have that here. And so I wasn't aware that the code allowed that seasonal type, I guess. I was just, because is this under outdoor display
Well,
in the code, or where in the
it's.
city code are we looking?
Yeah, it does, the code in our parking section on our off-street parking, it doesn't indicate anything about seasonal parking stalls. I mean, we're kind of in a different type of era, I guess. They don't explain, that we don't have anything in there about online parking or, the pro parking that they have. It doesn't say to include those in the counts or not to include them. So we're trying to give them that benefit of the doubt, because it is a tight, they had to scramble to get the 432 stalls. And all of the building that's going around them account the parking lot or the parking stall count is maxed out for those buildings as well. So there's not really a lot of room to put much more. Taking away that would require more property. for them to purchase. So that's where that ambiguity came in for when I was reviewing the code, is that we don't, it doesn't explain it in the code to not include that count, because there is a good portion of the year that very well could not, it will be open for parking.
Yeah, yeah,
Because the shed displays are over to the very east on the landscaped
right. Right.
areas. You know, we've made sure that they've excluded their trailer displays, their equipment display, you know, the equipment parking stalls, all those stalls that are going to have stuff in them all year long. We removed those.
I understand.
Yeah, and I get where you're coming from.
I'm looking at it from just simply city code perspective and then applying it across the board to everyone. So, for example, if do we have the same standard for, say, Walmart?
I don't know. The code was different back then when Walmart got approved.
Right.
So
So if they
can't
came
answer.
and they said they wanted seasonal
We would have to look there.
outdoor storage, is that something, are we setting a precedence then that we're allowing everything? That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit concerned.
Sorry, we do have something in the code. So it just says, all the uses in any commercial and then lists other zones shall be conducted entirely within an enclosed building except those deemed by the land use authority to be customarily and appropriately conducted in the open. So we do have that in the code that we can
Okay.
allow
I didn't see
that.
That one.
It's 191604, number 2. And then it kind of lists uses that qualify for exceptions include vegetation, nurseries, home improvement centers, lumber, outdoor cafes, outdoor retail display, car wash, vacuums, auto dealers, and so that
Okay. Yeah, I missed that one. So that's good.
so we can consider it where it's customarily appropriate.
Right.
So and then
That's
you're the
not
land use
fitting.
authority for this, so you're the ones who can do it.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm not feeling comfortable with, if we are going to allow that seasonal, I'm not comfortable with not marking it. And I think that fits in, is it section 3 there?
Yeah, that it should be marked.
Okay.
I feel like that needs to be clearly marked. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I love Home Depot. It's the big boy toy store. We all know that. That and Lowe's. But what I'm hoping is that we're not gonna have what we see over there. I think that wouldn't, I don't feel like that belongs here. In Saratoga Springs, the store definitely belongs here. And there are a lot of us that are very excited about that. I think you're going to get some fantastic business, of course. But maintaining the aesthetic quality, I think, is important.
A question that arises for me with that, if we have them stripe it or mark it, we want to make sure that it's not being marked out to where people don't park there.
Sure.
Because they assume that it's going to be seasonal parking and that it's blocked off for good, because we don't want that to happen. So, however, I don't know if there's a way to do that without preventing people from parking there year round.
Well, I think
I don't
creative. We certainly don't want to discourage. It's
Right.
technically, even with the seasonal storage, technically might say that we should be maintaining the number of parking spaces. I took the tedious task of counting, and maybe I went cross-eyed a few times, but
I
didn't-
went cross-eyed. I had to go through and put down numbers.
I didn't get the 432.
How much did you get?
Because
Because I'm curious, because I missed some.
Yeah.
I actually missed 2 stalls down here on the parallel parking.
On the
It
side?
actually, right, on the west side. It's the top 2. It's not shown here. I counted the 8, but there are actually 10 on that parallel parking.
I don't see where you're looking.
So
There's the ones against.
down here on the south, on the west side, westernmost side of within the parking,
here.
right there.
Are those bollards?
Those are parallel parking stalls, and there's 10 of them.
Are those going to be striped? Because that would
Yeah.
make the
Yeah.
difference of,
Yeah,
Yeah, they'd be
Those-
striped with the cross.
yeah,
and those are identified as parallel parking on the,
yes. I don't know which number that is. Shows
I don't
that
see
on-
anything identifying those.
I think,
I just see the one for the curb.
if needed, we can add identification to that. We do have the dimensions. They are, almost 23 by 9 feet wide.
And they're
22 and a
striped
half
with
by
the
9.
Yeah,
S mark,
By 9.
yeah,
Okay.
for parallel parking. Does that calculate up for you? Or there's,
Yeah, I'm trying to find.
I should have sent you my, my numbers. I should have left that on there. I deleted it before I put it in your packet.
I think so we did go mark out all
I got 413 plus the 2 load and go. And in all honesty, whether it's online parking, whatever, it's all customer parking. So as long as they're available for parking for customers, whether it's a pickup or a walk-in, to me, I think it's neither here nor there. It's customer parking. So 415 plus 10, that's 25. And then I think I'm still missing the rest.
So did you catch the pro parking?
7.
Which is-
I counted the pro
You
parking.
counted the pro parking?
Yeah, I did not
Load and
count any
go,
of
the
the
online-
spaces that were designated as, of course, rental equipment, because obviously that's not customer parking.
Yeah,
But if we're allowing seasonal storage, I'll be honest with you, I don't really know what seasonal means. Does that mean that that's
In the
intended for?
summertime, they have pallets that have bark.
Right.
Yeah, so
Well,
that's,
looking just from a technicality standpoint, is that Christmas trees? Because that's seasonal.
do you have
is
Christmas
that-
trees?
They usually,
they're usually within the garden center.
so I mean, to me, I'm thinking it's seasonal. I'm looking at, well, that's where the storage is going to be for all of the spring stuff, the bark,
Yeah,
trees. In the summer, it's going to be bark, trees, gravel, whatever. In the fall, it might be the leftover bark and trees and gravel, and in the winter, it might be Christmas trees. And so I feel like what we're setting this area up to do is to eliminate the parking spaces in all reality. So there would be nothing, no matter how we call it, we're giving up those parking spaces. And my question is that really what we want to do? Recognizing Home Depot and they sell what the customer is demanding. It's business.
that's a fair point. We did have quite a few conversations on parking with the applicant. Can you speak to the number of stalls here compared to your other sites and what you see as far as parking capacity and how that's working? Because obviously we do have the code and what's in there, and then we have what's being requested to think about. So we did have quite a few conversations on parking.
Yeah, we did have conversations on the parking. I think that the seasonal sales area, to your point, it is blocked out, but that's not necessarily meaning that it's always going to be occupied, every single one of those stalls. And so you might have times where you might have some occupied, some, or none of them occupied. I mean, it may flux just with the time. As far as what you're seeing in other stores, we are trying to push to meet the code with this, and trying to comply with what we can with rental equipment and making sure that the ones that we know are definitely going to be taken, we're not counting. But the ones that could or could not be be taken at times, we would count because that would be available to customers at the time.
Thank you.
I had a comment
I-
over here.
I'd love to see, at this point, I'd really love to see some data as far as the typical Wasatch Front, Home Depot parking lot fill.
This here's
You know.
Kim, she's actually with Home Depot.
31 years.
Fantastic.
I bleed orange.
I think if you can give your name and address, right?
Yes,
Kim
we need to get that.
Koenig, 479 North St. Mary in Marietta, Georgia. So for the parking, I think this one's really, we really have too much parking for what we're expecting in sales. The reason, a lot of the reason we're building this store is to relieve American Fork. American Fork it needs relief. We know that, and that's why we're here trying to give it relief. We don't like them to get that busy. So that's why we're trying to relieve that store. But I could tell you, as far as parking, the main time that stuff's out there, I mean, everybody shops Home Depot, I hope, is March through July. I mean, that's when they'll put that stuff out there, but then it's not. And then they'll put it out there a little bit for the wreaths and the Christmas trees in December. But other than that, it's really cleaned up. But I would tell you, we've seen a lot of our customers really shift into online too. So we're seeing where we don't need all the parking anymore, but we do want to meet your code. And so that's why we have the stalls that we do.
Sure. Okay.
A lot of people are doing online, crazy.
Yeah,
It's great for
well,
us, yeah.
yeah, it's great. You can do more business
One
with
of the
it.
conversations we had earlier was if we would consider 3 per thousand instead of 4 per thousand, but we had them meet our code. And I do think businesses have a model they want to follow as far as they want to be able to park their customers. So a lot of times you do see more, but then you do see kind of back areas in a parking lot empty except during peak seasons, like, the holidays and stuff. Yeah, if there's a concern though, we can always ask for more numbers or more data, but we did have a lot of discussions with them on parking.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Our community development director has comment.
Economic, just to
sorry,
clarify.
Economic development director.
I hired a traffic consultant a year ago over Thanksgiving weekend, Black Friday, specifically had them go to several Home Depot locations. And the location in American Fork, their average parking was 3 per thousand. So they were way over parked there if it adds to it. We were trying to decide if our parking requirements were too restrictive, and we found based on that weekend that we deemed the busiest weekend of the year, they still didn't use all their parking. So just that piece of information that might help you in your decision.
Is there something that we can do with the city code then? I mean, part of what we're doing is setting a precedence and an expectation, I think, here. And so if we're looking at granting, what I'm going to call it's not really obscure, but an obscure exception based on some other things. And I think it's important to make some adjustments to justify, if you will, justify that. The other concern I have also is we have city code addressing the visibility also of storage. And part of my concern also lies in the fact that the code requires that screening or that it's not visible from a public road or whatever it might be.
You mean for the outdoor display or for the racking on the rear?
Actually, it'd be both.
So the racking on the rear is not facing a public right-of-way at
Okay.
all. It's actually facing part of DI and then another business that will go there. There won't be a public street
There's
on the,
no
at the
street
rear.
behind the Home
No.
Depot.
It's actually the detention basin, and then there's a I went to look at the site today. There is a fence that covers the DI site, and then
That was
and then
one
there's
of my
another
questions.
lot. Yeah, there's another lot behind Home Depot. So, yeah, the rear isn't a concern, and the only public street is Exchange and Crossroads, which has a couple depths of building lots there. Then there's Lake Drive, which is a private drive, and then Redwood Road, Lake Drive, and Home Depot.
Okay.
Well, Lake Drive, lots, and then Home Depot. So really, Exchange Drive is really the only public road that there will be any kind of visibility.
Okay.
And you're going to see the lumber entrance.
Okay. And then that's just one of my other questions as well. I appreciate that. So I think that allowing the outdoor storage, the seasonal storage or whatever we're going to call it, I think needs a little bit more justification code-wise. If there's some consideration in code that we need to make to justify eliminating those parking spaces and exchanging them for, I mean, we can call it seasonal, but to me, it's almost permanent, really, because we're not setting any parameters of from March 1st to July 1st and whatever. There's just no parameters, and so we're just simply.
And I think we
Giving
can
it that
address
in
that
my-
in the code. I mean, to hold up this particular project, I don't know if that would be
Well,
feasible
as
for them, but
just throwing a thought out there. I mean, if there's a way, and I've got some other questions as well. I don't
no, go ahead, sorry.
too much time, but maybe removing that portion from the site plan approval and then working through that and then coming back and then addressing that, working that through. I think to me could be a great way to work that through.
Did our economic director have another comment?
The average for any given day was 1.93 per thousand. The max on Saturdays was 2.52 per thousand. And the number for that weekend a year ago was 2.85 per thousand. So does that say that our maybe our ordinance needs to be updated? Maybe we can have that discussion, but that's kind of what this study from a traffic engineer specifically says. So
I think that might be justification to make some adjustments in the ordinance, and then we can approve or recommend approval on the site plan based on the ordinance. If that makes sense.
Yeah, we can include the traffic study in the site plan or site plan staff report. Add that as an amendment, as supporting information. And then we can definitely address the code.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. Shopping cart corrals on the, what's the intent behind the matching finish?
That's just in our code. To make it all look cohesive, I'll give that answer instead of it's just in our code.
Yeah.
That's never a good answer, but.
Well,
you know.
I in my mind, I mean, I'm asking myself, is chipped paint prettier than doing a brushed stainless steel?
Again, it may be something
I have
that we
my
need to look
opinion.
at in our code.
So I just don't,
Yeah.
I don't know as far as longevity and maintaining. I would tend to think that it's
I don't
maybe
disagree
that's
with you.
something else to look at and
Again, it's
consider.
something else to look at.
It just says it has to match or complement the main color. So,
So brushed stainless steel complements the metal panels on that, because it's all subjective when you start talking complementing.
Well, the gray, it'll match the building.
it is subjective.
It is.
Anyhow.
Just
that's-
throwing
I'm
that thought out there.
Understand.
Yeah. Hopefully there's ways to avoid the chipped paint.
If anybody can figure that out, it should be Home Depot.
The cart corrals. So
Yeah, maybe.
obviously I've visited Home Depot probably in the thousands. I used to be a contractor, and of course it was almost a daily visit, times multiple times if I ever got something. Mostly. The oversized carts, the flatbed carts, the slotted carts, as I visit the various Home Depots, they seem to congregate and be stored often near the lumber area entrance, the overhead door, and that removes parking spaces. So my question is, how are we dealing with the storage of those oversized carts and maintaining the parking? without eliminating parking spaces?
That would be a question for the applicant.
I love that
You know,
answer.
seriously, I
Yeah.
don't know if they have certain spots to put them. I tell you, I really don't know. But I could definitely, we can get back to you on that. I don't know. You know?
I was gonna say, the car corrals, when you look at the architectural drawings, the car corrals are actually wider, I think, than you would see as like a typical cart corral at like Costco.
But are you talking about the ones that are just hanging around when people, customers
Like
leave
the
them? Because we
flatbed,
make
the-
them, we do make them move them, because those pros will just drop them wherever.
Sure, sure. We can't control what people do, what the
Right.
customers do. We're not worried about that.
Get them back in and put them somewhere.
So how many carts, Home Depot has? I'm going to guess there's maybe 30 of each type of cart. So when they're not in use, where are they stored so customers can use them? And if I go over to American Fork, I can tell you that all the carts hang out right there by one of those islands and eliminate, 4 to 6 parking stalls, maybe more. I don't know. Depends on the day.
I imagine that would be a store management issue, is to make sure that those carts get stored. Because, we
Well,
deal with
giving them
that
a-
at Walmart. We deal with it almost at every
Sure.
single
What we're
shopping
doing is
center.
we're setting up the store management, the store for success.
Right, understand.
So-
And so with stores, again, stores like this, if we were to require it, we would have to require it of everyone to provide that. And, cart management isn't written into our code. So maybe that's something that we need to include, but.
What
at
is the
this-
code regarding corrals? Is there a certain
Sarah posted it, just.
Oh, we don't have
number
one.
or?
No, we don't
Not, not carts, no. It's just,
Okay.
we just have a shopping cart corral code.
This says required, but we don't say.
We don't say that if
Yeah.
your store is so big, you have to have so many corrals or anything.
No,
I gotta put the-
Okay, so this is almost a non-discussion item. then.
right,
Okay.
sorry.
No apologies needed.
We can always
Oh,
add
I'm
it to our code,
gonna-
but,
We've never regulated how many should,
or what type, or,
or size, or.
Okay.
So it's.
Well, that
never-
answers that question. That's going away. Appreciate that. Non-bucket, or excuse me, non-bucket. Note 19 refers to non-permanent bucket signs that get run over and get looking a little trashy and so forth. Does our current code allow for non-permanent bucket signs?
What is a bucket sign? I'm sorry.
is it just a sign poured into a bucket that has
With
concrete?
concrete or plaster of Paris or something with a
Temporary
2x4
sign.
sticking out that
I would
says,
imagine it would run under our temporary code sign.
it says, note
In the code.
19,
Where is it is it in the report or the page?
yeah, under construction notes, 19 says 4 designated online parking spaces with non-permanent bucket sign. Refer to detail 2 on sheet C 6.01 for pavement marking information.
What page are you looking at?
It's on all of the site plan pages.
Site, site.
Okay, site plan, note 19.
Okay.
Okay, let me find it.
Yeah,
If it doesn't meet our sign code, they can't have it. So even if they
Yeah.
put it on, even if they noted it on here, if it doesn't meet our sign code, they can't have it. So.
that's my question,
And
is
that's
if it
one of the
complies
con-
with
right.
our ordinance. And if it does,
Right.
or if it's silent, then we move on. If not, then maybe there's a new strategy.
I would imagine it would be considered a
So
temporary sign.
later
which we-
on the code tonight, later in your agenda tonight, we have a code specific for those pickup stalls signs, and a bucket sign wouldn't meet that. So, but they can do what's proposed in the code tonight. So,
Okay,
I mean, maybe if we loosely interpreted it, we don't say how you have to mount it, so. I think on that, you can just say they have to meet code. Right now, we don't even have a code for that, and everybody's putting up signs for those. So what we're doing is putting something in the code that you'll see later on the agenda to help address that, so we actually have a standard.
So they could drive a piece of,
But we don't say in our draft how it has to be mounted. So I do wonder if maybe it's not an idea to have those be something that can be moved, but we don't address it. So I think on that one, we can just say they have to meet code, and we can figure out what that is, because we have a proposal tonight for you, so.
And again, if anything, we can refer back to our temporary sign code, which we do have a standard for that.
okay, thank you. Okay, I got that one answered. We talked a little bit about outdoor display and the marking for outdoor display. What kind of pad defines the shed display? Is that concrete pad
No, it's over, oh, let me.
off in the landscape?
So on the east side, you'll see
Yeah.
that little bubble on the landscaping area. They
Is
are
that just
outside of the parking, on the east side of the parking lot, southeast.
Right, I see that. I'm just curious, are we considering that part of the landscaping calculation?
No, I don't believe so,
Okay.
because it's marked
And then
out.
we've got a 5-foot setback, so we're not eliminating parking
No,
there either, in theory anyway, correct?
correct. Sorry, I'm shaking my head, but that is correct.
Okay.
Oh. Yes.
Displays on, and storage areas on the west side. The section A indicates that the display pads need to be under the building's permanent roof or on designated display pads in front of the landscape areas. Oh, in the front landscape areas. But display areas are shown on the west side of the building and in the parking. Oh, we dealt with the sheds there, but on the west side, we've got some display areas.
Are you referring to the trailer displays?
No, I believe there's a label on the west side of the building.
Over here on the,
Correct.
against the building?
Correct.
Yeah, these are vehicles and equipment. So rental, they rent trucks and their truck rentals and their equipment rentals. So similar to,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
And
if-
those are not counted in the parking lot count.
Right. If you scroll up just a little bit, which I guess you can't do in that slide, there's an area labeled
Oh, you're
as
talking about right
20 on that
there at the
corner.
bottom. Okay.
Right, 20 says outdoor sales and display area.
I think it's an equipment.
I'm just talking code here.
Yeah, again, it would be
City code.
equipment.
What's the intent of that display area?
Equipment. So what, like,
It's got your jumping jacks and your,
yeah, your snow blowers.
okay. So if we have a conflict, is this a conflict with city code?
Don't believe so. You'd have, Sarah, can you pull up our outdoor storage code
Yeah.
or outdoor display?
Section A, all retail product displays shall be located under the building's permanent roof structure or on designated display pads within front landscape area. Should that be frontage landscape areas? Just asking. And is this going to create a conflict for another project?
What do you mean, another project?
Do you have another building come in and they want to do the same thing and we say no, and they point to Home Depot and they say, look, you let them do it on the front and the side?
Oh, you're saying because it's not in the front, it's on the side?
Correct.
Oh.
So what is it?
Which
For
area
equipment
is it
rental or
specifically? You
fit?
said number what?
You know where I'm,
The city code or on the site plan?
Well, I have I have what page are you on?
Outdoor display in city code 19, is that what you're asking?
Oh, well, that's what I have up. I mean, on the site plan.
On the site plan,
What area are you concerned with?
I'm on page
Just north of the parking,
C2.03,
west side of the building.
and it's on that
2.03.
upper left-hand corner of the page.
So it's not going to be equipment.
Number
like
20?
Correct.
Hammers or tillers or tool rental.
Yeah, tour rentals.
Is what that-
Is that under the roof?
I don't know if roof
I
goes
don't
out.
know that the roof extends out beyond the parapets, right?
Oh, sorry. We'd have to look at the site plan.
Yeah, okay.
Apron, right?
Yeah, the code does say front.
That'd be the west elevation, right? So on the west elevation, we're showing that fencing on the new elevations, is that correct?
No. The fencing, the garden center is on the east side.
Right, I'm looking at the west elevation on the paper that you gave us.
Can't be one of those.
Security mesh fence, is that what that area is intended? That's the tool storage
Yeah,
area.
it's another security.
That's not a display. Well, I guess
Yeah,
both.
the tool rental.
Tour rental.
Is there any problem with moving that storage area to the front?
So is that covered with the fencing?
So that would not be necessarily display, it would be a storage area.
Right, that's encompassed, that's enclosed in the fence, the mesh fencing.
So that would fall under a different city code.
So number 20 is behind mesh?
Right.
Okay. That'd be the same as the garden center, essentially. Moving on.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I can see it now. Yeah, it's under it looks like it's under a roof structure as well.
Yeah, there is somewhat
There's
of
a
a,
canopy
A
there. I think,
canopy. It looks like it's under a roof
I
canopy.
think the site plan, if we wanted to get technical, site plan could
showing some.
relabel that instead of
Okay.
Right.
display storage.
I think
I'm not
so.
saying that
I
has
think
to
so.
be, but
Oh, gotcha.
and there's no conflict with city code on the, what's being called temporary staging, loading, and storage areas in the back of the store, including the gravel pad.
Gravel. pad.
Temporary to me, is just very subjective word. It's temporary means permanent, unless there's, again, parameters that are,
I don't believe there's any gravel pad in the back. Is that showing? I don't have the site plan in front of me.
yeah, there's a gravel pad. It's
I believe it's all concrete and asphalt.
It's
between the parking,
Oh, sorry.
but between the asphalt and the detention basin.
Oh, okay.
Is that gravel, is there any conflict with code for a 4-foot gravel pad?
I don't think you're going to be parking anything on that. I think that's just land.
Call
that
that
would be considered
landscaping, correct?
Yeah,
Terrascaping, even better.
right.
What page are you on right now?
So look at the landscaping
I'm on the
plan.
same
Can you
page.
just move it back to the presentation?
C2.03.
Oh. So back here along the, I didn't have it on.
Number
one.
4?
So on the very north of the asphalt, or sorry, south of the asphalt, along the detention basin is a gravel strip or pad.
4-foot gravel strip, yeah.
Yeah. That was counted in, that was counted in the landscaping.
And the intention is to do gravel? I'm asking the applicant.
Yes, it's the gravel, I mean, because I'll be moving, unloading and everything back in that area, keeping an area clear.
What do you store in that area?
I mean, it's just, I think it's mostly for, correct me if I'm wrong, Kim, but it's to, when you're unloading the trucks, kind of staging, moving things around, but it's not necessarily going to be a permanent storage. They'll be moving stuff in and out of the store. There's a lot of, sales turnover in that, so.
And online stuff, if somebody buys something online, it might sit there till they come pick it up if it's a big thing.
Out on the gravel or anywhere out there?
Yeah, it's just right back there, and sometimes we even put it in the aisles in the store. I mean, this online stuff went crazy.
Okay. But we don't have any public streets along that backside, so code-wise, there's no conflict with that, correct?
No.
Some of my questions already got answered. Let's talk a little bit about this fence, or the micro mesh or security mesh fencing. What's the difference between this micro mesh, security mesh, and chain link fence? Because to me, it's the same thing.
The micro mesh is good, it's only about 3/8 of an inch, so it's very tight. You can't climb it, you can't cut it. It's a security measure that gives the best security for the material that you can get. It's expensive to be able to install just because of how tight it is.
Yeah.
Where you're looking at the chain link above, it's more like a 2-inch, like your typical chain link fence. I mean, this is more of a mesh. It's a steel mesh is what it is.
Okay. So it's basically a micro chain link, if you will.
I guess you could say it that way.
So what my mind is going to go to is what's the intent behind our ordinance of not allowing chain link? Do we know?
Aesthetics.
Aesthetics?
It's strictly aesthetics.
So then, of course, my question is, are we concerned about the aesthetics of doing a micro chain link that we call a micro mesh or a security mesh? And that would probably be a question to the city council
Right.
as to how they're feeling about that.
I don't know if I don't think we define chain link, do we, in our definitions?
I don't know. The definition?
It's the definition of chain link? Or,
Not so much the definition, but what kind of chain link you can and can't have, like, if it's vinyl coated or if it's certain colors are allowed in certain areas. But you might equate the two, but I don't think micro mesh and chain link are the same thing. I mean, they're not. They're completely, different, and aesthetically they look different. Yeah, so I don't really see
So it's not,
requiring a debate over it.
we're not questioning the micro mesh, we're questioning the chain link above, correct? That's.
No, he's.
I'm questioning the whole
chain
thing,
link.
and again, I'm just looking at it from a code perspective, if we're creating a conflict with the code.
I think you guys could each weigh in on that, because that's a fair question. But we don't have a definition. We just say that it's not allowed. So it's a good question. Do we see this as chain link or not see it as chain link? Or does it fall under standard definition or not? That's something we've discussed ourselves, so I think you're welcome to discuss it and kind of weigh in on what you think on that.
But if there's ambiguity in the code, then we're supposed to find in favor of the applicant. And so unless the code is changed, I don't think there's an issue right now.
I think we decide whether there's ambiguity. So, I mean, my technical brain is it's chain-like and it links, then it's a chain link.
Right, but in
Whether
my
it's
mind, it's
half-inch
not.
or-
And so there's
So-
ambiguity, because in my mind, it's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
What is this called when you purchase it?
I mean, that came from the architect, and that was the micro mesh.
So the architect calls it micro mesh.
They call it a micro mesh.
No, it's called
Yeah, what is it?
flat vinyl coated mesh.
There's a micro mesh and security mesh.
So I've just kind of Googled it just to see, so they have mini mesh and standard mesh, and they call it chain link. So, it was a tough question for us too. It's something that they really want. It's a tough question for us as well.
If the federal government can determine that ketchup is a vegetable, I think we can determine micromesh is not chain link.
I'm gonna leave that discussion with city council.
Well, this doesn't go to city council.
Oh, it doesn't?
You guys
Oh,
get to
that's right.
be
This
the
is a site
final
plan approval.
decision tonight.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think.
Never mind then.
Just remember, it's administrative.
Right.
Yeah, I
It
wasn't.
is administrative, so your vote, your
Yeah,
vote
it's a
will
site plan.
decide if it meets code or not. So this gets to be on you.
So let me read you the code for our with our fencing code. So maybe this will help you a little bit under prohibited fencing. So it's section 19.6. Got to get to the 19609,
Just says
number
no.
4. So it says, no barbed wire, chain link, razor, or wire, agricultural, electric, chicken wire, mesh wire, hog fencing, etc. Fences shall be allowed. This does not apply to chain link or wire fences if the fence is not being used to delineate lot boundaries and is being used, number 2, is being used for agricultural uses or otherwise for the keeping of animals, and does not occupy more than 50% of any residential yard, or is for backstops, sports fields, or sport court fencing within a public or private park. So it just basically, no chain link is allowed, but
Then it talks about separating
yeah,
properties.
yeah. So
So this wouldn't apply.
it wouldn't apply to chain link with these 4 indications. And this doesn't fit within any of that.
So if it's not expressly forbidden, it's allowed, Fred?
Would, yeah.
So can we look
basically-
at,
I mean, sorry, go ahead.
Have you looked at other options for this?
We just spoke about that yesterday, so.
I don't, let's decide if we're gonna be against it or not, because we don't have to look at all these other, other options unless we decide, hey, we need something else. I'm okay with
Right.
it.
Yeah, it's.
So maybe we need to have that discussion first, because I don't feel like we need to say, hey, we need to come back with something else when we
The
decide. we're okay,
applicant met code. That's what I
Right?
see.
I don't think, I'm
that's
seeing a definition that we're expressly forbidding this from being there, so I think it's allowed.
And that's for the micro mesh and the security mesh, or just for the micro mesh?
No, I believe what the applicant was requested, and then the condition that you had also said, I think those are
Following code.
appropriate. Those are appropriate, yeah, because it's based on code.
Okay. And you guys get to vote. How many do we need? Do we need all 4?
We need 4 for a quorum, but I think a majority still rules.
Right.
Oh, okay. Okay, so anyway, it's on you guys.
okay, so to clarify it, and I'm not disagreeing with you.
Did you want to be, did you need your microphone on? Okay. There, it's on.
I just want to clarify that the code says no barbed wire, chain link, razor, or wire fences shall be allowed. And then it says this does not apply to chain link or wire fences if the fence, 1, is not being used to delineate lot boundaries, and 2, is being used for agricultural uses or otherwise for the keeping of animals. I don't know if this qualifies as an agricultural use. And then it says and, so I would say 1 is definitely met, 3 is definitely met, does not occupy more than 50% of a residential yard, or is for backstops, sports fields, or sport court fencing within, so I think 3 and 4 are met. I don't know about agricultural uses. I mean, arguably Home Depot has, is involved in
It's
agriculture.
RC zone. It's not
So-
an agriculture zone.
That's how I would look at it as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. So then it wouldn't be allowed.
And
You can keep going. I just want to say, we don't need it, this doesn't need to be discussed if we've decided, hey, we're okay with it.
Yep.
Maybe for a code discussion.
Yeah.
okay, so basically, what was said previously about coming up with an alternative above this, the mesh,
Yeah, so that was the condition.
Is-
That was.
That was the
As one of the-
condition I recommended,
the
correct?
current condition, okay. So then I have a question. If we can turn to code, section 19.16.04, number 6. And tell me if this is applicable or not applicable, or what your thoughts are here. I'm looking at 6B.
1904,
19.16.4. 6B. A talks about, A says to alleviate the unsightly appearance of loading facilities, these areas shall not, blah. Okay, that's for loading. B says screening for storage and loading areas shall be composed of 6-foot-high solid masonry or architectural precast concrete walls with opaque gates and self-latching mechanisms. To keep gates closed when not in use, bollards are required at the front of the masonry walls to protect the enclosure from the trash enclosure. Obviously, this would, I'm just looking at it from technically what the code is requiring to surround that storage area would be masonry or precast concrete, which would kind of be a downer. But I'm wondering, and correct me if this code section here is out of context, then great, but I'm wondering if we're going to allow the mesh, we may need to make an adjustment to our city code.
allow the mesh for
Screening for
screening
storage
for
areas?
Storage areas. So you're referring to the back elevation? Or to what?
So, any of the storage, so you got your tool storage, you got
tool storage
any
is-
storage areas. If we're
So-
storing stuff in the back, then if I'm understanding the code verbiage correctly, there needs to be screening for the storage. And correct me if I mean, you guys are more
So-
familiar with the code than I am.
Yeah, so the way that I looked at that, and I missed the lot that is also behind, which has not been developed, but there is, the majority of the back of that lot is the precast concrete that DI put up. So there is that screening.
Right on
there-
the back side of
On the back
the
side.
detention basins?
On the
Is that-
back side of the detention, on the south of the detention basins.
Okay.
Now, that does not cover all of the whole span of their site. So I'd have to bring up the lot, yeah. So it comes, you can see where the DI, you can see the fence. So it goes to the end of the DI site
Okay.
there. So it would be from there to the west.
And where does the building, you did an overlay on that, didn't you? With,
Yeah, I can turn it back on.
that was awesome.
So, yeah. So it would be, some of that would have to be fenced.
So we could, they could continue it here. Is that on their plan or not on their plan?
It's not on their.
No,
site.
it's not.
That's on WPI's portion, though,
Yeah, I would have to look at Plat F.
issue.
So it should be, yeah, it should be a non-issue, but I need to look at, I can't tell you off the top of my head. So,
I didn't hear what you said, Doug.
This is a WPI issue. This is not Home Depot property. The only connection or use there is Home Depot is using a portion of this common property for open space. That's all. But
Landscape.
WPI will be putting in installations in the back, including the detention ponds and the fencing and so on, curbing, so.
So that would be under Plat F requirements to screen that, to match that fence line with
Okay.
the ice.
And Plat F has already been,
It's been, the preliminary plat has been approved. I'll have to look and see if that is in their plan, because I know the construction of the detention basin, but they have not recorded, so we can make that a condition
The
of their.
challenge I see is that we review this requirement with a site plan, because it's under the site and architectural design standard, so it's not under preliminary plat section. So it is a site plan requirement, because we wouldn't know if we needed screening or not until we're looking at a site plan. I think it would be best to have that condition met with this. I think it can be a condition.
okay.
Of this project, it needs to be,
But it sounds like it doesn't
Yeah, so is this a
need to have
condition?
anything to do with this.
Yeah, is it a condition for the applicant? I didn't
We
think so.
shouldn't have it be conditioned for them.
Right.
Well, this isn't a condition for the applicant, but it's kind of like a catch-22. You can do this as long as this other condition is met, but we're not saying that they have to do this other condition, but someone has.
Right, so as far as making a motion, we don't need to add that
Need to add it
as a
in.
condition to this site plan.
Well, the condition, in my mind, the condition would need to be added in order for them to have storage areas, outdoor storage areas, they would need to be screened. But what's being said is the screening doesn't have to be provided by Home Depot. It would be the responsible
We
of,
have to wait for the other person to come back with what they're doing? Is that what that's?
The
Possibly.
preliminary plat has already been approved for Saratoga Springs Commercial Plat F. The property directly behind the Home Depot site is owned by, is common area to the whole subdivision, because it's the detention basin. Home Depot does not own that. So, Sarah, will you pull that code up again?
Yeah.
so then in that case,
The
the code would be
challenge-
asking for Home Depot to provide
It
the
is a
screening?
site plan requirement.
So this one right here, the challenge I see is that at preliminary plat, we don't know what needs to be screened and what doesn't. We're not looking at loading areas until site plan. So it can't really be a condition of preliminary plat.
Correct.
Obviously, we don't want to have Home Depot be doing some precast concrete walls around their tool storage. That'd be ridiculous. But if we allow the outdoor storage and not require the screening that the code calls for, then someone else can come back and say, well, look what you did for those guys.
I have a comment from our attorney.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think Sarah kind of hit on this a little bit, and I would just encourage you to listen to what she said, which was that it is an appropriate condition for the site plan, right, Sarah? Is that what you're saying? And I think that's what I would say. Because it can't get addressed
Yeah.
with the preliminary plat. It can only
And then
be-
we can work through maybe a code modification of some sort for whatever, if,
It's an issue that I think Home Depot can probably work out with WPI. Yeah, I don't know. Go ahead.
Home Depot and WPI are currently and just finishing up the details of an agreement that would say whoever is in the lead of development for this property will do the installation, but ultimately, WPI is responsible to pay for it. So that's currently underway right now. So either way, this will be done before a certificate of occupancy is issued for Home Depot.
And you're referring to the detention basin, right? Yeah, so.
Yes.
Just to clarify, Doug's comment is related to the detention basin. So when we're looking at the project site, this area back here that on this image just looks like a big long white strip, that is where the detention basin for this commercial development will be. And so that's being done by WPI, and then everything you're seeing on the Home Depot site plan is being done by Home Depot.
Again,
So
it-
again, what's the condition then that we need to?
That screening is provided for storage area, outdoor storage areas in compliance with 19.16 6B.
So wait, we do need to put a condition in here, but we don't because
Yes.
we
I
would.
I would recommend putting a condition in, and then it's basically to finish out that fencing from the DI fence over to
Edge of the-
change.
yeah.
Now whether, and that's something that DI would have to work out with WPI. Regardless, like Doug said, it's going to get done.
Right.
Is they're under contract negotiations to figure that out.
And this would apply to any outdoor storage. So if we're doing storage on that side and the tool storage,
That's already fenced in.
that's fenced
with
in,
the
but is that
mesh.
non-compliant with the screening requirements that our code currently has? Where the code specifies a masonry or architectural precast concrete walls?
That's a good question. In the past, we've applied this to the screening areas, like at or the loading areas, and to like trash enclosures. I don't know that we've applied it in that way, but I see what you're saying.
Do we have examples of other businesses, other buildings where we've not required?
Tractor Supply. Tractor Supply has been required to install, what they did was they installed wrought iron fencing and then they put a mesh around that. So, and we allowed that, that would be considered this type of storage facility, screening for storage and loading areas. So we did allow that for Tractor Supply, is that mesh screening.
As a screening?
What other storage areas are you referring to? Because I think we're calling those.
That's what I'm asking,
was
what other
asking.
areas? I mean, we've got
Other
the rental. They-
Oh, yeah, well, on this side, I think we're calling those other areas outdoor display, not storage. So I think we're distinguishing between storage and
okay.
outdoor display for,
That's true, good point.
Oh, we'll move on. Those are all my questions.
And just to let you know, they don't have a trash receptacle. They actually have a trash compactor. And so that trash compactor, we won't see
Yeah,
any of that.
big
They'll come in,
metal container.
take the box away.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner McConkey. Commissioner Kilgore and Commissioner Barton had rung in earlier. Did you guys have comment you wanted to add?
Yeah, I'd like to go back to the parking. So the traffic or,
Traffic study?
yeah, you mentioned that. I guess it was a traffic study. So the traffic study showed that the 3 parking spaces per 1,000.
2.85, yes.
Yeah, so, well, I mean, our code with 3 per 1,000 is
Ours
more
is
than
4.
enough.
It's 4.
Or 4, I'm sorry. So it's more than enough.
Yes.
And the applicant has met that requirement. So I don't
Yes.
think that needs to, I mean, I guess it's okay to include it, but I don't know what the purpose of including that with the applicant's packet would be, because they've already met the code. And then are we just saying that, see, we met the code even more?
I think to Commissioner McConkey's point is to back up the seasonal parking lots or parking stalls. This traffic study indicates that Home Depot has provided more than enough stalls to accommodate their use. So
Okay, so.
basically that would be what I would include the traffic study for, is to provide that data showing that they do overexceed according to they've met our code, but they have overexceeded the parking stalls needed for the use that they have.
That's why the leniency and the allowing the outdoor storage for this.
Okay,
The
I just
outdoor- the
don't
seasonal
want to get into, we're talking about setting precedents and what we do allow when it's ambiguous. This time it's not ambiguous, it's very clear that they met code.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, to say that we've got a traffic site that shows even more that they met, it just seems to be an unnecessary burden that we are putting on Home Depot that we don't put on others when the staff has determined that they meet code.
And it is your responsibility to check us. And so,
Yeah.
and that's the whole point of this exercise is the reason we have you as the land use authority, so you can ask these questions. And so, I mean, I
Right.
commend you for bringing up those questions, because it makes us as staff look at our code more closely to recognize where it is that we need to make corrections to accommodate for more retail and more accommodating to businesses. So, but having that put in just helps to back up that scenario.
Well, and I do agree about, that's why we're all here discussing it. But again, I just feel like making it a condition to an administrative process just seems like it's overkill. I do think that traffic study would be very useful in having a further
Absolutely.
discussion about the code. And, attaching those kinds of studies for that discussion, because we are trying to figure out, under those circumstances, whether the code's appropriate or not. But in a case where the applicant has met the code, and just adding that on, it just seems like an additional burden. I know it's just an attachment, but you know what I mean? So
Totally up to you.
I'm just making that part.
Well,
I just don't see why we need to make it a condition.
If I can clarify, in my mind, they're not complying with the code because they're using, I think I counted 38 parking spaces for outdoor storage or outdoor display.
Right, but that's not against code.
Yeah.
The code doesn't specify. They've met code.
I'm not understanding.
Yeah, there's
If you
no
eliminate,
code that says that you can't count
That
the
part of-
seasonal
yeah.
parking. There's nothing that says that. So the applicant has met code, and therefore to make a condition that they have to add a third-party traffic study that's not been something that they requested, if I had to add something to my application, I would have my attorneys and my engineers having to go over that traffic study. It's a third-party traffic study that they didn't commission.
well, I guess in my mind, it's not seasonal parking, it's what do they call it?
Yeah, this is indicated as seasonal parking.
Yeah.
The 38,
Seasonal sales area is what they're calling it, and that's
or
in
not seasonal
place,
parking, but seasonal sales.
in place of, and that would be taking the place of, so we're eliminating those parking spaces for seasonal purposes, which we already know that for, I think it was mentioned, March, April, May, June, July. So 5 months at least out of the year, plus winter and so forth. So at least 6 months or more out of the year, we don't have use of those parking spaces. And so that was, including the traffic study, and that to me makes more sense because what we're saying is we're justifying eliminating that parking for some undetermined amount of time that we're calling seasonal, but we don't really know what that means. And we're justifying that based on a traffic or a study that was done.
Well, again, they've met code because the code doesn't specify. And we are asking the applicant to attach a third-party traffic study that they didn't commission. And so,
It's good information, but I don't feel like we need to attach it.
it's good information for us to study the code, but not to require attachment to the applicant. And if they don't, then what? Their application doesn't go through because of something that they've already met? I don't think it just makes sense. It's a burden where, in situations like this where the code is ambiguous, that we tell the applicant that they have to attach something that we created.
I think,
Yeah, I just want to point out that they're not required to use those parking spaces for outdoor or display. They're allowed to, but they're not required to.
Right.
So they can be used for parking.
Which is what they will be used for if there's not things out there. I'm 100%, I'm sorry, you finish your comments first, because mine are just the same.
That's basically my point. I just, I think Commissioner Conkey asked for some data. It would be great to have that data with respect to studying the code. And so I'm glad you had, I think that's a terrific one. But again, to require a applicant who's following an administrative process, who has been determined to have met code, to be then conditioned to have to add that third-party traffic study that they haven't reviewed and everything before we recommend approval, I just find that to be burdensome. And I think that let's study the code. Yeah, let's study that traffic study. Let's study the code. But that's the appropriate place for that. Not here, not for the applicant. And I just want to make that comment. You may disagree. whatever. But I just feel like we shouldn't make that to be a precedent either for future applicants, that when our code is ambiguous, that we will find some traffic study or something to justify them meeting the code and requiring that as part of the application. So anyway, that's my.
I think we're probably best, well, let's do a motion and see where it goes.
Can I say one thing about parking? I don't know if this probably has something to do with this, but striping it, I'm with Gina on that. Like, it just tells people not to park there when they can use it. So I don't know if that has anything to do with anything we have to change or anything like that on our side of it. But I thought there was ample parking before, without counting the storage. I mean, I'm like not a contractor, but probably could work for Home Depot, right? Because I'm there so often. And so it's never, even the American Fork store is never full all the way to the end, ever, even with outdoor storage, even with rental spots. Like, I couldn't believe how many parking spots we had here for this. And so hopefully they are required to stripe it. I don't know what the requirements are, but I hope that doesn't happen. I feel like there's plenty of parking and they overdid it for us. And so I appreciate you guys being able to work with the city and making that work. That's a lot of parking.
Can I add something that may or may not help? So as a city, we do allow temporary uses like fireworks stands, and we allow those to go in parking lots. And that's a different process, but I'm just pointing out that we do have situations where we allow temporary uses in parking lots. But that's just, it's really, you guys can make your motion however you choose to make it. So that's what you're here for.
So, and just to piggyback off of what Sarah says, in our outdoor display code, under our site plan review design standards, site design standards for non-residential development, seasonal uses outside of those areas may be approved outside of outdoor display areas, may be approved through the temporary use process. So again, it's going to be a temporary use.
So they just need to go through that. And I was going to bring up,
Did you see?
I was going to bring that.
But
what
I
that
wasn't
is?
meaning that they
Oh.
needed to do a temporary use
Oh.
every time. I
Okay.
wasn't meaning that. I was just saying that, I was
Thank
just
you.
giving an example that we do allow. But really, it's, so, yeah, whenever,
Yeah.
I think
Sorry.
everybody's voiced their opinion about it, so it's really up to you to make a decision.
I was going to say, if we don't have anything else, let's do a motion. And I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I will make that motion. I move to approve the proposed Home Depot site plan on Lot 608 of the Saratoga Springs Commercial Subdivision at 1226 North Exchange Drive in the Regional Commercial Zone with the findings and conditions below. Are we including the site plan one?
The chain
Do
link.
that
So the safety screening
with
above
the additional
mesh
condition of the safety screening.
screening
of the-
to follow the fencing.
Yes. Was that the one we were adding in there?
And then also
There's a couple that,
the fencing along,
Oh, and the fencing along the back with the,
Screen the loading.
yes.
and
Is
also,
that clear enough on the motion?
and also
Is that
relabeling,
clear enough on the
isn't
motion?
there relabeling the display and storage area?
So I've got here, comply with the city's fencing code, identify the parallel parking on the site plan that was not labeled.
I think what you
Comply-
do is make a second, and then you can have discussion on the.
Yeah.
So because there's a motion been made, I think we need to know if there's a second, and then discussion.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second on the motion?
Second.
Do we have this
Discussion.
discussion on the motion?
Yeah, let's clarify wasn't there one about relabeling the displays as well?
Yeah, so I've got comply with the city's fencing code, identify the parallel parking on the site plan, comply that the parking signs, my chicken scratch, I'm having a hard time reading it. The online parking signs shall comply with the sign ordinance. And that screening is provided for storage areas in compliance with section 19.16.46B.
Okay, the person who made the motion, are you okay to amend the motion?
I don't,
you want to read my notes?
No, I just don't know if I feel like that we need to, actually, I'm not going to amend it, so we will have to
Okay. This,
deny it if we want to, and then,
Wait, so you don't want to amend also the one that was recommended by the,
she added that one at the
so I added that one, yeah, so I had the two additional conditions in there, but I don't feel like we need, so I'm fine with my motions.
okay, again, a little bit more discussion with, okay, I thought we said that there were some storage areas that needed to be relabeled as display areas, otherwise there would be additional code that would apply. Wasn't there one like that as well?
That was in reference to the equipment rental, and there is a mesh,
yeah.
there's the
But we don't
mesh
have to-
around
so-
that,
So
yeah.
it turns out, okay, sorry, I didn't hear the part that.
And it's covered.
Turns out it was already covered.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you okay with the second?
I'm okay with the second.
Okay. Then are we, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Okay, so it's 3-1, it passes. Does anyone need a break? Because I need a break.
Yeah, let's have a break.
Small break.
Okay, good, perfect timing. We're going to take a 5-10 minute recess.
5:10. The 5-10 minutes.
Okay.
They're good questions, but I think the thing is, it's saying, well, that's a different form, but we don't have that form until there's a code standard, right? Because by then, it's a code topic. So there's not a good forum where we can discuss this. Those things don't come up unless there's an application.
The big thing that I'm hoping to avoid is that we end up with trashy parking.
But if we do,
Parking lot.
it's because our code allows it, and we can't put them at fault.
No, yeah, and it's strictly code. I mean, if the code allows it, then you allow it. But if the code doesn't, that open storage area,
So that's
To
the
me-
place, I guess, where they always have like tents and
yeah.
you know, like
that's
you're
what
driving right
yeah.
along, and it always gets
But
in
the
the way.
city code doesn't allow it in parking lots. That's what,
But it doesn't not allow it.
it does not allow it. Unless you go through the temporary use process. So in outdoor display, it says all retail product displays shall be located under the building's permanent roof structure or on designated display paths within front landscape. And then display areas shall not block building entries, exits, pedestrian walks, or parking spaces. Building. Outdoor display areas shall not spill into walkways or any drive aisle adjacent to building. So specifically,
The way they do their outdoor stuff, it's away from the main entrance. It's like
Right,
closer
but-
to the landscape.
which
So that is not
correct, but
disallowed.
it's not landscaping, and the code says,
Oh, I'm sorry, not landscaping.
shall not block building entries or exits, pedestrian walks, or parking spaces.
Right, and so they always put it off to the side of the building, closer to the,
So it's in
I don't know,
front,
landscaping, but
they're eliminating parking spaces in front of the building, and this just. And so in my mind, somehow we've got to be able to get around that so that. And do you want my? The code allows this. We're saying yes. I think, a traffic study is a great way to.
you can't require an applicant
I
to
agree.
third party.
I agree.
Without their engineers.
I totally agree. I totally agree with what you said.
So I like,
And so how
your
do we-
reach, but we
How
gotta
do we
figure
get
out.
around that? So at this point, probably the best thing to do might be for us to visit our parking lot.
Yeah.
You know, maybe we go down to 3. But we've got to look at what our parking issues are.
See, that's the other part, is we are at 4, parking space says 2 is enough. So it's not,
Yeah.
yeah, but it's not
It's not official, it's not necessarily official.
And that's why, again, we can't do that.
But somehow, if we're gonna change, I think that would need to be revisited in order to justify allowing this seasonal, which, I mean, if you go over to the American Fort, it's year round. In fact, they store for summer stuff over winter. In areas and their salt. So they're eliminating way more parking spaces even for their seasonal time than they're showing here, so.
It sounds like, I know, but it's not going to add anything for us to say that we need more. It's just gonna say we need less.
Correct, and but that would do. Change the code. And now, to me, it's like, I want to use that for seasonal. That's perfectly fine, because you take away those for seasonal, all year round, you still can apply it. But, and so to me, it's almost a no-brainer. You might have to adjust the outdoor display code to address the, non-walk parking space. To be code compliant. And that's part of it. And I look at, so we allow this, now Walmart comes and says, okay. Well, we get something else. It'll be temporary. I mean, really.
No, it's very cute.
And now it's all.
It's almost maybe a quarter. So that's what I'm hoping for. I don't like the feeling when it comes to the aesthetics of the whole, appeal. I don't like the things that the residents want.
Get used to the big what's coming. We said, why? The big neon display. That's why. Why is that coming? That's where it's gonna go. And so we were talking about how, well, Park City doesn't have it. So what's up? And he goes, well, we're not Park City. No, but we are a. You can say no to us. Because no, like, they're just gonna come. So I don't. No, that's at the same time, the code allows it right now.
What you're saying is they require.
We can't say you can't. Actually, you don't say anything. I can't. I don't know. Well, then you have to do it.
Loading area. Yeah, like how do we require?
I didn't know what you're talking about.
Okay, let's continue with our next item, which is a public hearing for the Viviano at Saratoga Springs Community Plan and Village Plan Major Amendment located approximately 400 West Pony Express Parkway. Property Reserve Incorporated is the applicant. Kent Page will be presenting this for us. Is the applicant here this evening?
Yes.
Would you like to come up and join us? Go ahead, Kent.
So during our review of the preliminary plat, this came to our attention that there was a discrepancy in what they're proposing for a cross-section and it's not going through, let's see. What they're proposing for a street cross-section and our accepted street cross-section, at least in the Viviano Community Plan, Village Plan, it was the private street was going to be a 59-foot private road. So the proposal is to eliminate that 59-foot on page 15 and just have private road. And then on page 16, we just have a few clarifications of conditions of what street cross-section they would use. And then we'd like them to add a note to this page 16 that that states that sidewalk and park strip conditions vary throughout the site. Utility installation locations shall adhere to ST-30 for conditions A, C1, C2, C3, and utility installation locations shall adhere to ST-31 for condition B when condition B is located on the north or east side of the street. In addition, or an additional 10-foot wide public utility easement is required on the outside of each condition and shall be shown on the site plan and plat. So those are the proposed amendments to this community plan and village plan. And we're bringing those before you because our code requires major amendments to be considered by the Planning Commission for community plan and village plan.
So this is a public hearing, so I'm going to open this up for public comment. I'm going to close the public comment because there's no public comment, and then the applicant, would you please state your name and address for the record, and then do you have anything to add? Just a sec. Okay, now state your name and for the record. Sorry.
Ross Ranzenberger, PRI, Salt Lake.
Okay. And do you have anything to add?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
I will go ahead and turn this over to the commission for comments. Commissioner Kilgore.
On page 2, where the red lines are, for the proposed amendments, it says, so the red line crosses out, I guess, the existing paragraph, which looks different than what's on the proposed pages, but I'm just going to ask about this page. We're crossing out the part where it says, where site conditions require modification from standard detail, city engineering shall approve modifications, and we decided to cross that out. Why do we not want the city engineer to approve the modification?
Because we could be more specific right in this note of what we want in those particular conditions. You know, on the north side or east side of the street, depending on the width of the road, it could be 53 feet for ST31 or a right-of-way of 45 feet for ST30. You know, those are approved private street cross-sections we have in our code right now. So we thought we'd be more specific, and it would be it'd be better for the less ambiguity, you know, in the future.
Okay.
So that the red line was what they had previously in the approved village plan and community plan, and we're proposing just to strike that out and include what's in black.
Okay, so they're already meeting code, so I guess it's just redundant to say that it's going to be the street, that the city engineer has to approve. Is that basically what the point is?
To have to approve alternatives that aren't in the code. So the point is, they can use the standards we already have, not alternative standards.
We're not opening up that door that they could ask for an adjustment or something different then?
Right.
Okay, I see. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. And then, page 40, sorry, it takes my iPad a minute to render. Okay. So on page 15, we've got, this is on the, well, I'm afraid to touch it because then it'll re-render. So under the color-coded roads and the description of the roads, like the purple one's 180-foot public right-of-way, the red one's 77-foot. So all of them, all the other roads have footage marked on it. And the change that we want to make is that the private road is the only one that used to say 59 is the only one that doesn't have a footage on it. So why do we need to be that specific where all the other roads have footage on it, but just this one, the request is to take that footage off?
So
I'm missing the
think
point
that
of your whole thing.
Jeff is here, and he could probably address this as better than I can, but the cross-section width for the approved private road on ST 30 is 45 feet, and for ST 31, it's 53 feet. So I guess, on 15, we could have 45 or 53, but then that might bring up more questions of, well, is this a 45 or 53? So we would more specifically address that in what we would have on page 16, the proposed changes with that note, and there's further diagrams that there's been proposing to add.
And the condition states that the utility locations shall adhere to those cross sections. So we're approving kind of an alternate private street section with A, B, C, C1, C2. And so with those different combinations, sometimes the right-of-way width will change. And it won't be 45 or 53, it could be 46 or 50, depending on the combination of conditions. But the utility locations will still adhere to our standards.
Okay, it's not necessarily the width, but it's the locations of those utilities.
So that's why we don't call out the exact width, because it'll be variable.
Okay, so the conditions the requirements are very specific, but depending on what they're using it for, it might not be one or the other, and that's why you'd rather just not have a label. I guess that's the idea. Okay, I think I understand that. Okay, and then on page, so this is page 48. Let's see. The note on page 16, what am I saying that? Seems to be different from what, the part about, the note at the lower left-hand corner on page 16 seems to be different than what was in the, on the previous, page 42, which is.
So where it says note sidewalk and park strip conditions vary throughout the site,
Yeah.
that's what the applicant proposed.
Okay.
And we looked at that and we came back with a modification, which we just read.
Okay, because in the staff packet on page 2, that note looks different than what's on the proposed, on that proposed page 16,
Right.
right? So which one are we approving then?
Oh, that's a good point. So, yeah, the staff report is misleading because we're striking out the red part and then we added the last sentence. So I see where they're confused.
Yeah.
So we struck out some of their language and then we added that on page 2 in the staff report, staff added that language after the red.
So are we approving that then, rather than what's on the proposed page?
Right.
Our proposal is to add the note that's on page 2, where it says binding engineering staff suggests modifying the proposed note on page 16 to read. So what was on page 16 is what was the applicant proposed, and we came back and said, well, we proposed using this.
All right, okay, that makes sense now. Sorry, I'm a little thick on that part. Okay, that's it for me then. So if we make a recommendation for approval, we just have to just say, yeah, we approve it, and that automatically means the one that's on page 2. Is that right?
We put that language in the condition, so yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. Commissioner McConkey.
We just got 2 questions. The 2 pages refer to private road on page 15 and private drive on page 16.
Oh.
Are those one and the same, or should one say something different? On the proposed page 15 and page 16.
I think they should actually both say road, right?
Is there a technical distinction between road and drive that we need to adhere to? Jeff?
We would love to change it as long as we don't have to come back to this meeting.
Yeah. I appreciate you bringing that out. I didn't notice that. So Is it better to use
They didn't
road or
take time
drive?
to see if there was a definition in our code for each.
Yeah,
It's, yeah, there's no real distinction between the two. It could be either.
okay, maybe we should stick with one so there's not that confusion, so. You can
So if
propose
we-
that change.
Page 15, or page 16 to say private road.
Yeah, that might be better to distinguish between a driveway and a road, private road.
That's a good idea.
Is that something we need to add in the condition?
It can.
It
yeah.
sounds like a good condition to me.
Okay.
And the other thing I had, just, I'm a little bit confused about this, but just going off of above where it says private drive, in that image, it's showing a 29-foot wide pavement, 33 top back of curb. Is that, I guess my question was, we're changing these private roads from 59 to, I don't know where you measure from.
Yes, so the 29 will always be 29, and same with that 33. And then in addition to that, those conditions will be added adjacent to the curb and gutter, so it'll change the
Okay.
total width.
So it's just setting the minimum to
Exactly.
29, is what it's doing.
Yeah, 29 pavement and 33 to back of curb, yeah.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thanks.
Any other questions from the commission? I will entertain a motion.
Motions.
I can make it if. I move to recommend approval of the proposed amendments to the Viviano, how do we, or saying that? Sorry, Saratoga Springs Community Plan and Village Plan with the findings, conditions, and the staff report with the additional condition of
Changing private road.
changing the driveway to private road. Is that what we had decided?
Yes.
On page 16.
Yeah.
We have a motion from Commissioner Barton. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
I have a second from Commissioner McConkey. Do we have a question on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Great, that passes. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming and staying.
The administrative ones take forever, and the legislative ones are just,
Yes. Item number 6, public hearing Land Development Code Amendment Title 1905, Supplemental Regulations, Car Wash Regulations, Title 19.18, Sign Regulations, Drive-Through and Curbside Signs. This is city initiated and will be presented by Sarah Carroll, our planning director.
Okay, thank you. We are proposing a spacing limitation on car washes so that we don't get too many of them. And then we're also proposing some water limitation standards. So we're proposing 5,000 feet from existing or approved car washes, and full service is in there intentionally that way because that's how our code does it. So we have full service and self-service defined separately. So we're not going to regulate the gallons on self-service, but we do want to regulate it on full service. And then we're proposing 35 gallons per car wash. And then with drive-through boards, right now our code allows one menu board, but you'll see there's multiple existing sites that have more than one. And so what we're proposing is a preview menu board ahead of the menu board, and then that would be 75% the size of the menu board, so smaller. So and then we're also proposing signs with some standards for curbside pickups. And we have some great slides, so, I'm in advance, so, yeah. Okay, we've included a map here that's showing you those radiuses around the existing car washes, existing and approved car washes that we already have. We have, is that 5 right now? And so what you're seeing on this map is kind of where else they could be allowed, keeping in mind those standards we just mentioned. if this gets approved. And then we just have slides with the language in here. These are proposed images of menu preview boards and then curbside pickup signs. And we do not say how they have to be mounted. Anyway, this is just the language that's in the staff report. And then staff recommends approval.
Okay, this is a public hearing, so I will open this up for the public comments. I'm going to close the public comment, and I'll open this up to the Planning Commission for questions and/or comments. Commissioner Kilgore.
So approving, or by adding the preview board language to our code, how does that affect like a drive-through restaurants and things like that? I mean, I guess they won't be able to add, will they be able to add preview boards if they don't have it because our code has changed, or are they under the old code? And then what do you think about also going forward? Does it have to change things like where they stack their driving if we've got preview boards now as well, or does that probably not matter?
The businesses that are existing, if they don't have one, they'd be allowed to add one if they chose to. So they could come in under this current code and add one if they chose to. I don't know that it impacts stacking. It just allows people to look at the menu before they order so that they're more prepared once they get to that order screen.
Okay. I guess because some areas we have where the stacking is already pretty tight when it comes to drive-through windows, like especially like right around here. I don't know what direction I'm pointing at, but so I was just wondering if we put a preview board, if it just causes more traffic to slow right in the street. Because there isn't,
a good point.
you know what I mean?
Right.
Because there is not a stacking lane already for some of the older businesses. So if they put preview boards wherever, then traffic will stop and it'll be right in the road.
Oh, okay. So I see what you're saying, that we might want to add a language about stacking stalls so that we're not flowing into the road.
Yeah, just because.
So basically, like, you need to be 2 stacking stalls in or something like that, or 2 or 3 in before you place your menu board.
Yes, I'm thinking, I use Coffee Creations a lot. And I know that in the summer, what they would do is because the line is so long, it goes out into the road already. And some of their staff will sometimes come out and take orders before they get to the window. So that's great. That's good customer service. But if we have a board, a preview board, that's going to encourage that kind of out into the roads even more, possibly. And so that's why
Coffee Creations, for example, has 2. So really, the first one would be the preview board, and then the second.
The one that's on the
and
side of the
they
building?
order at the window, so you have 2, you have one kind of before you get to the bigger one, and then you have the window. So they were under an older code, so
Right.
but that would be an example of a preview board and then a menu board, but with a place that's set up differently, because there you order at the window, but with we'll just say McDonald's, you would have a chance to look at the menu before you get to the microphone where you order.
Yeah, so I actually think that the Coffee Creations is, I wasn't trying to pick on them, but the fact that the line already goes out into the road, for ones that aren't set up right, if we don't have any, I don't know, if we're not a little bit more specific about where the board could be placed, Coffee Creations does it on their building, at the corner, so that's great, but if they put it somewhere else, it could cause even more traffic out into the street, and that's what I was a little bit concerned about, if we don't have some kind of, preview into that.
Okay.
So, or not preview, but, thinking about that as well. But otherwise, I like the idea. Thank you, that's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. Any other comments? Commissioner McConkey.
So looking at, and I like your comment there, but looking at what the intent behind the preview board, my understanding of the preview board would be to prepare for ordering before you get there. And so while it could hold things up sooner and so forth, I suppose someone could also say, well, but it's also going to speed up the ordering process. So it's hard to say what the actual impact would be there.
Right now, just so you know, we don't have anything in the code about location of that primary board. So right now, we
distance
we
from
don't
the ordering.
have something just for the primary board. We don't say, like, you need to be a certain number of stalls in or anything like. We don't have that now for even the primary sign, but it's something for discussion.
So,
So along your lines, I'm just thinking, so Coffee Creation, again, they've already put their preview board, and I'm just using them as an example. If they hadn't put that preview board there, and then this ordinance comes in, and they figure, oh, okay, now we could put a preview board, there's nothing in the code that will stop them from putting it out right on the side. Well, maybe there is on the sidewalk, right? Because they can't put signs up on the
You know,
sidewalk.
we could just add a requirement that it be in the drive-through lane, you know, and not like forward or ahead of the drive-through
Yeah,
lane.
because Microsoft.
Or two
McDonald's
bar lengths
creates
from
the
the-
double, the stackings and things like that, so it's not so bad. But I'm just thinking older places before, with the old code, that it might cause that kind of thing to happen. And so that's why I think maybe location should be somehow thought out, at least some kind of a.
well,
So
do we
could
want to add a
require
location?
That
Or-
both or all menu board signs be in the drive-through lane, not like ahead of it or outside of it or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
That's probably a good idea if we're not already saying where the primary or board is. We should probably specify that. If we're going to go to the lengths of specifying this.
That's good. I had a question about, on,
We have a comment from our attorney.
Yeah, I think it does say that the preview board shall only be allowed in a drive-through and installed prior to a drive-through board.
Oh,
So
great, thank you.
It's in
Did I already
the
say that?
drive-through
Already in
lane.
there.
It already says it.
Okay.
So it can't be right when you come into the parking lot or somewhere else like that. It's got to be
Why did
in
I
the
miss-
drive-through.
Okay, I missed that.
and a question about a preview board shall be constructed in the same architectural manner and of the same materials as the drive-through board. So if the drive-through board is a monument-type sign with stone and so forth, does that mean that the preview board also needs to be a monument-type sign with stone?
Yes.
I'm wondering how the other commissioners feel about that.
The construction of the monument sign, what should it,
Construction of this, so if you have the main ordering sign, if it's a monument, and I'm just thinking like, not really extremes because they're out there. If you have a monument type sign ordering, what do you call it? Ordering menu, whatever. And then the preview has to be the same but smaller, then that would have to be a monument type preview sign as well.
I think from aesthetics.
Reasonable.
Match.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm thinking McDonald's, theirs seem to match and they seem to be like electronic.
Yeah,
I don't know if it is here.
Are we asking
I
if we
guess-
should require them to match? Is that what we're?
that's,
Yeah, that's,
Well, we
That's my
say that in
question.
here, so in the draft, it says that they should match.
so I guess if they don't want to have the preview board to look like something, that original will have to not look like something.
they'd have to change them
We'll
both.
have to change them both, so.
Yep.
Okay.
And then we say
That
it
seems
has
It
to
already
be,
says that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's what the
Yeah.
proposal.
and we say it has to be a monument sign or mounted on the wall. And, here's the one that Commissioner Kilgore brought up. So we say preview board shall
No.
only be allowed in a drive-through lane installed
It was number 1,
to a drive-through.
and I missed it.
Okay, that's all I have, thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner McConkey. Commissioner Barton, do you have anything? Okay, so I've kind of already asked, well, I'm okay on the car wash. I'm okay with the menu board, preview board stuff. The car wash, I like the idea of limiting or specifying how far apart they should be. I'm having some issues over the this verbiage. New car washes, full service shall only be permitted if they can demonstrate that the system will not use more than an average of 35 gallons of water per car. I know this is St. George's, the 35 gallons, that was another thing that I'm coming to grips with here. I did go look some stuff up on the EPA's site. Apparently, I didn't realize this, but if you wash your car at home, you can use over 100 gallons of water washing it at home. And it's actually more efficient to use a car wash. But it's pretty, there's no real federal standards for how much a car wash should use. I'm hesitant to say we got to use a specific number of gallons for a couple of reasons. One is, how are we going to enforce that? And I don't like the idea of having to send somebody around. In Kent's email, it talked about how they used cameras and how they measured the water to determine how much each one was using. I think we should encourage that they be water efficient. But I don't want to put our staff or having to get an expert to come in and have to go out and do something where we're measuring finding some way to measure how many gallons of water they're using. And I don't necessarily want to put the burden on a business to say, okay, spend a couple $100,000, build a system. Oh, you're using 35 and a half gallons. It doesn't pass, tear it all down. I'm kind of concerned about that. Or even having it to where if we have some sort of enforcement where they have to report in to the city to determine how many gallons of car wash or waters are using per car. I feel like when they're putting the plans in, if they can say, hey, we're using X system, and they can provide us with documentation from the manufacturer that says they're going to only use so much per car, I think that might be sufficient. And then I'm guessing when we're building it, can the building inspectors, can they go in and go, oh yeah, we have XYZ system instead of ABC system when they install it? Is that something that, is that too burdensome?
No, so the thing with the building department is they only inspect building code. And so the things in Title 19, if the inspections are required, that's done by planning staff, not because we don't have the building department inspect things that aren't building code.
Okay.
Where does the 35 gallons come from?
So that just came from another city. So St. George recently did a study on how much their car washes are using and what they said they would be using versus what they're actually using. And then they have required that all their existing washes meet this goal within the next 4 years. So we took that number from them, and then we also did kind of a search on what the gold standard is, and that's where that number comes from.
It'd be nice if the EPA or the federal government came out and said, hey, all car washes need to meet X. That would be really nice.
But even then, I think your point is good, is that, okay, so there's a number. How do we inspect that? How do we validate that? That's still going to be an issue.
Well, and right now we do look at, so right now, whenever a car wash goes in, they have to purchase water rights, and we have to calculate how much water to charge them for. So they have to submit data to us now when they go in that's showing us how much water they're going to be using. So the ones that have come in recently, we base what we charge them, how many water rights they have to buy based on the information they give us. So they do already have to give us, our engineering department, information on how many gallons they use. And that's based on the system that they're installing.
And if they use more, then what?
Well, and we don't have that in place. So we don't have we don't have that in place as far as how much are they actually using. And their restrooms and sinks are on the same meter. So we do meter water usage, and they do have to pay for water usage. But as far as they would have to be willing to supply us data, for us to actually look at usage, but then we'd still have to account for, just like restroom usage and faucet usage. And we don't have that in place. So, I mean, that would be like 2 meters, and I don't know that we want to go. So really, what we're saying here is they have to demonstrate the system can do that, but you're right that there's not something necessarily afterwards that we can go evaluate.
Or that it has to be a physical demonstration. It could be like a manufacturer standard or something like that.
Yeah.
right, or not?
Right, a manufacturer standard based on the equipment they're using. So what we would hope is that if they ever replace their equipment or change their equipment, that they still are following the code. So if we look at utility data, plus they supply us with how many washes they're doing per day, we can make a guesstimate on, restroom usage, but it's just a guess. And so, but if, if one car is 35 gallons per day and say like restroom usage is equivalent of 30 gallons per day, it's kind of minimal in the total. So we can make a decent guess.
Kent had a comment, I think.
Yeah, I'd be willing to try to clarify with the city of St. George and to see how they're planning to enforce this. I think it's a pretty good standard because they passed a moratorium for 6 months, and they actually met with all the car wash owners or manufacturers in St. George, and it was quite a spirited debate, what I was told. So that they've done their homework. And so the 35, there's actually car washes that are getting a little bit lower than that. They maybe have some proprietary information about the angle of their nozzle, and so they're getting pretty good. But I'd be glad to talk with and see how they would enforce it. I know St. George, and I think also here there's water meters that can measure it in every 15-minute increments. And in talking with the water services director down there, he said he actually physically did his own study because there was reports that were inconsistent from the industry, where he placed a water meter at the car wash and had a camera. I could ask you, but it didn't seem like it was cumbersome based on what he told me for him to do that study. So,
I, for one, I like the number. I think it makes makes them aware that we're like this is a concern for our city and stuff like that. Like I read, we were all sent that, right? So I read quite a bit into it as well. And but I just feel like it's saying this is a concern for us. We don't want this type of usage and that kind of thing. And I don't know. I think most car wash owners or whoever's deciding to build these are very aware that cities are doing this. And so I think it's probably important for us to have something in there. So it's not like, Saratoga doesn't care about it. So we can go in there and use whatever we want, right?
when I read it, it's not necessarily an aim towards car washes saying 35 gallons. It's kind of a message to everyone of let's conserve, let's be careful for water.
So I like the number being in there. I think something needs to be in there. And between everything I've read and that we have talked about and stuff like that, I think 35 is I like the number. I like it being there, but that is just so.
I think it helps to regulate the equipment, the new equipment. And so if they require a permit to put equipment in, then the city approves it if it complies with the.
And technology is improving, so
I think it'll get better even than 35, to be honest.
they're thinking that it could be as low as like 25 in a few years, but St. George thought,
That's
well,
what
let's
they
don't
said
be
in the-
too onerous on the businesses, so let's do a 35. So
And we did look at the data that was provided by both Wiggy Wash, which was Papa Wash when it went in, and then also Quick Quack. And the data they provided when they had their water rates calculated shows that they're meeting this, at least what they gave us, right? So we haven't done any review after the fact, but the information they provided us, they're below this range from what they turned into us.
So they're below the 35 gallons per car.
So it's not an outrageous number. We just don't have a way to really enforce it right now.
Only when a
Apply.
permit, is applied for and they submit the equipment information.
Yeah, and this would be for new ones, so that second sentence on B, new car washes shall only be permitted if they demonstrate they meet this. So we would be looking at that with the new ones. But the two recent ones gave us information that say that they meet this.
Also, when that car wash application came in a few
weeks ago.
Go, yeah.
Yeah, they mentioned about the recycled water as well as fresh water or new water. Do we need to put that distinction in here? Because if it's 35 gallons of new water versus, maybe a certain percentage, not that we need to put the percentage, but versus recycled water, that's also a big difference, I think.
Oh, that's a good point. I thought we,
Maybe you did, and I missed that too.
I think they usually use net where they actually flush down the drain, so they recycle quite a bit of it, but
Yeah.
maybe we have to put,
you're right that we don't distinguish that here. So,
I guess you could by interpretation call it says the system will not use more than an average of 35. And so if you're recycling water,
Whatever the system
is that really, the interpretation could simply say, well, it's not using
That's true.
more water. So I think by interpretation, it would.
Because if they use, say, like 40 gallons of 50 gallons of recycled water versus 35 gallons of fresh water, that's
Yeah,
That's a big difference. I'd be okay with the recycled water one.
Right.
But if I guess it's how we define use.
I think
Like,
we can add fresh water. Is fresh the right word? I think we can add fresh water.
culinary or primary water.
I think we ought to leave it as is and let
Yeah,
that's just
the
my
whole-
opinion, allow the planning department to interpret what.
The only way for them to achieve it is to use recycled water as part of the wash system. That's the only way for them to use this or to meet the 35 gallons. But the intention is 35 gallons from the water system, not the car wash system.
Okay.
Yeah.
Surprised at how
But it
vague you're
doesn't
willing to
hurt to
be.
clarify from the city water system.
Okay,
not-
yeah,
not
maybe
the-
make that.
So.
Yeah, because I'm surprised at how vague Commissioner McConkey's willing to be on this.
There's some things that, just from my experience, there's some things in the code that are most helpful to have some interpretational measures by the department, and some things that need to be more specific, but I think this one's a good one.
Our city attorney has a comment, I think.
It's my understanding that this is secondary water that's used for car washes. So it's not drinking water.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Okay.
So I don't know for sure either,
Surprised.
but that was my understanding.
So they would have to, if it's secondary water, then they're going to have to recycle it before it even goes through. They had to clean it up, almost.
I'd have to treat
Do
it.
you know,
Because
Kent?
my second.
well, they use the cleanest water for the rinse.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
The rest of the water is recycled as much as they can. Then they pull out the sludge, so often, but, so I don't know if they would use it secondary here, or I don't know how many cities use, if secondary is clean enough to use for a rinse. They always say spot free, so.
As bad as mine smells, it's not good enough to wash my car with.
Yeah.
It's okay to water my grass, but I don't want to smell that. Okay, any other questions or comments about this? I'm ready to entertain a motion.
Do we have a condition?
I don't think we had a condition, right?
Nope.
Just if you want to specify what system that's coming from, the 35 gallons.
I don't think so.
Meaning city water system.
I'll make a motion. I'll see where it goes. Based upon the evidence and the explanations received today, I move to forward a positive recommendation to the city council for the proposed amendments to Title 19, chapters 19.5 and 19.18, with the findings and conditions in the staff report.
We have a motion from Commissioner McConkey. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a second from Commissioner Barton. Do we have a question on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That passes. Okay, on to the next item. Public Hearing Land Development Code, Title 1905, Supplemental Regulations, Accessory Structures, including 1902 definition, city initiated, presented by our Community Development Director, Ken Young. And, okay, microphone's on.
Okay, Commissioners, this particular code amendment is in response to some issues that we have experienced over the last year in regards to approving accessory structures. There have been a few errors, actually, that were made administratively that were not following code precisely. But as we examined the code more deeply as to what should be happening, we determined that the code is not precise enough as to what should happen in regards to approving the architectural standards or the architectural appearance of accessory structures in residential areas. So to avoid any further complications with residential accessory structures and make the code clear both for staff and the public, we have recommended these changes. So basically what we are recommending at this point is that we have a height limitation, which has not been super restrictive, but that following code that has occurred in other neighboring cities, we felt like this was a good addition, not only for architectural appearance, but for height as well, so that we break it into two different categories, standard or accessory structures that are over 200 square feet, in other words, a shed size or whatever, and that is the level at which a building permit would be required if it exceeds 200 square feet. So that's why you can get those smaller sheds at Home Depot or other places and just put them in your yard without having to get a building permit. But once you exceed that 200 square feet, then there's a building permit required, there's a building code that is applied to the structure itself, and now we are also saying that there should be a height limitation, which we are recommending to be added to the code to say that the maximum building height for buildings or structures with a footprint of 200 square feet or over shall be 25 feet, or the height of the primary structure, whichever is more restrictive. And then also the other category would be, or 15 feet for buildings of 200 square feet or less. So rather than saying if a building permit is required, we want it to be clear as to what the size difference is. Before these larger sections of changes or amendments that were being proposed here, there are many smaller additions of the word or structures, buildings or structures, because there is a difference in some of our definitions. So we wanted to include those in there. So there's several places throughout this section of code or this chapter of code that have just those small additional verbiage in there. I didn't list them on the presentation here, but they're just several locations. Otherwise, looking at letter B of that same section that we were in, we are talking about the architectural appearance. So the only thing that we have had up to this point is that the accessory structure or building shall be of color and construction compatible with and similar to the primary structure. Well, that's the language that kind of got us in trouble, because that's very subjective. It's not clear and concise or precise in what we're trying to achieve. So we looked at that further, we looked at other codes, and we determined that this is what we would like to see added into the code, that buildings over 200 square feet shall be built of durable materials except metal, and shall include a wainscot, siding, or similar architectural feature covering a minimum of 30% of all building sides except door areas, made of similar materials used on the primary structure. Now that is a lot more precise, and some may say restrictive, but we felt that we needed to have that because the options that are available if you don't have that type of verbiage are many. And what we're trying to achieve in our residential areas is the maintenance of a residential appearance of our outbuildings so that we don't get the appearance of industrial. So I'd like to show what I'm talking about here. This or that type of building, not this, not that. So we do want it to feel like it belongs in a residential neighborhood so that the backyard and side yard neighbors also feel like the buildings that are close to their property belong in that neighborhood, versus some of them that that picture is a a structure that you probably have driven by many times here in Saratoga Springs. And we feel that that is not appropriate, does not appear like it belongs in a residential neighborhood. And so we're trying to avoid that. And so whatever we can do to achieve closer to this picture, which is what the verbiage in our proposed verbiage in our code will achieve. So any questions with that? A couple other things, or maybe just one other. We are adding verbiage that accessory structures requiring a building permit shall not be located over PUE. That exists currently, but we're adding unless an encroachment is approved by City Public Works. And that is an opportunity that can occur when there are no issues that the city can foresee or the utility companies. And for Public Works to approve it, they need the letters from all the relevant utility companies saying they're okay with that. So that is an opportunity that can be achieved, but hasn't been stated in this section of code previously. Any questions on this proposal?
Okay, so this is a public hearing, so we'll open this up for comments from the public. We're going to close the public hearing, and then we'll open this up for questions and comments from the Planning Commission. Commissioner Kilgore.
On 1A, you had the, I think it was, wait, no, 1B. It says, the 30% of all building sides, parentheses, except door areas. How about window areas as well?
Well, we don't consider windows because in order to achieve the 30%, normally the wainscoting is going to cover that. And so that the window area will be higher than most of that opportunity. So they can work around windows, whereas doors come down to the ground and that needs to be exempt.
Oh, because, okay, we're talking about wainscoting.
Or other similar features. So there's a lot of different opportunities that creatively could be applied.
Right.
To the building, but just as an example, wainscoting could be worked around windows, but there are a lot of other, if you didn't call it wainscoting, there are a lot of different things that you could do architecturally to do that.
That makes sense, yep. And then on 1A, we're talking about the height. So there was a house in my neighborhood where they have it's one of those boat garages. So it's bigger, or, the garage door is taller. And then on top of that, they have an accessory dwelling unit. There's a window like a grandma apartment or whatever you call those. And the slope of the roof is taller than the house. Because it's more of a, like this, I mean, architecture, it doesn't necessarily, it matches because the materials are all the same, but the roof line doesn't necessarily match. But would that mean that going forward, those kinds of garages would
not be
allowed?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. Commissioner Conkey.
So is there wainscot required? Or they can do the whole thing in
wainscot
siding?
is one of the opportunities that can, and it says, it's listing, what does it say? Shall include a wainscot, comma, siding, comma, or similar architectural feature.
Okay, I was just clarifying that. So they gotta have at least, so they can't have 70% of the, be a door, basically. 70% of the side or 70% of? No, shall include wainscot.
So we're talking about all sides of the building, so.
30% of all sides.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're going to get a congregate number of all sides. What is the percentage here? We're going to exempt out the doorways, find out what the rest is, and then take 30% is required to have some feature.
Some feature, okay. Still, for the accessory structures that require a permit, there's a 5-foot setback requirement, correct? Currently in the code?
2 feet.
2 feet?
Yeah.
Okay. Did that change? Nice. Okay. In section 1A, just a clarification here, should read with a footprint greater than 200 square feet shall be, rather than 200 square feet and over?
Well,
Because then
200 square feet is the dividing line.
Right.
So if it's under 200 square feet, you don't have to worry about it. If it hits 200 square feet, you need a building permit, you need to follow these guidelines. So we're saying 200 square feet and over, or greater than, whatever. But it's-
Okay. Because I know that the building code verbiage is if it exceeds 200 square feet, which is in line with the end of that, that section of 200 square feet or less.
See what you're saying, good catch there, okay. So, yeah, 200 square feet or less would not be
Which is
required. So then we'd have to just say a footprint of over 200 square feet.
Yeah. Or greater than.
Greater than, okay. Okay.
With a footprint greater than 200 square
Greater
feet,
than, okay.
that'll be 25 feet.
Yeah, it's these kind of details, you got to think it out and read it a couple times and make sure.
I've had so many conversations over this square feet thing.
Okay, so we'll say a footprint greater than 200 square feet shall be, okay?
Right. And then in section B, where it talks about, where it accepts metal, in other words, built of durable materials except metal. The way that this is written, it would prohibit any kind of metal framing, including cold form steel studs. And so my question is the intent to prohibit the metal facade?
It is the facade, so.
So we could add except metal facade?
Oh, sorry.
Add the
I was
word,
pulling up the picture.
Except metal on the facade.
and then my question is, in this picture on the screen, that portion could easily be metal above the wainscot and have a similar look.
Right.
So we're trying to get away from the industrial type gaudy look. Well, I don't know, gaudy's not. It's difficult for me to really draw the line, I guess. I'm fine just saying except metal facade. But that would also include metal roofing, correct?
Yes.
So that's what I would propose, is just to add the word facade.
Sorry, I'm trying to go back to the right slide.
Okay. And I'm okay with that. I mean, it has its place, but
They out of order now? There.
So what we've had to do in our last couple of applications that came in, and we had difficulty with the approval, was both of them were metal buildings, and we did what we could to put lipstick on the pig. But we didn't have code to require a lot, but we worked with the applicants and made it better than what it would have been, but still not what we wanted. So that's why we came forward.
Doesn't it have to look like the main building?
No, it has to have a similar architectural appearance, so by use of the construction materials.
So the main building had metal with those applications?
Would there be a building with metal in the residential area? Do you
No.
know a home that's made with metal?
No, that's what I mean is,
in the current code,
if the current code, if they have to have similar building materials, did the main building of those applicants have metal? Then couldn't you just deny it based on that?
We have
well, it doesn't say that in the current code, just says.
That's
The
what we're
current
asking,
says shall be of color and construction compatible with and similar to.
but not same materials.
So it's
Right.
compatible,
Yeah.
that's subjective.
It is.
So we have,
Very stucco and.
did you want to make a comment, Fred?
Yeah, just exactly what you're saying, but Ken and I mean, they argued that the flashing, this matches the flashing, which is just the metal that connects to the roof.
Yeah,
So, and the gutters. And
Yeah.
that's what they consider,
That's a
yeah.
stretch.
But they said, well, we have metal flashing.
That was
Yeah.
the reasoning
So,
behind
That was-
so they said it is similar materials because we have metal on our home. So most homes have metal flashing. if not all of them, so.
Yeah, I think this is great clarification.
Yeah, I agree.
That's funny. You know, you hone in on the 3 inches of metal and not the 30 feet of stucco.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, it makes sense to clarify that.
Any other comments from the commission? I'll entertain a motion.
Motion,
Is this it?
find it here. I, wait, is this right? Based upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move to approve proposed amendment to the Title 19 with the findings and conditions in the staff report dated October 25th, 2022.
We have a motion from Commissioner Kilgore. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second from Commissioner Barton. Do I have a question on the motion?
I have a question on the motion. I feel like we need to include some additional verbiage and edit some verbiage in 19.5.11 1A. Change the verbiage from reading the maximum building height for buildings or structures with a footprint of 200 square feet and over should be changed to with a footprint greater than 200 square feet. And then in section B, adding the word facade after metal.
So we have a proposal to amend the motion. Does the Commissioner Kilgore, do you agree to the amend?
Yes.
And the second, are you okay with that? All right. So the motion is amended. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That passes. All right, item number 8, public hearing, Land Development Code, Title 1920, internal accessory dwelling units, review of process. This is Senate initiated, presented by Ken Young, our Community Development Director.
So surprised, we're still talking about IADUs. Hopefully we'll get it good and clear here soon. I did mention this at our, yeah, we'll see. Just a couple of minor things here and there that we've added at the beginning of this section 1920-04. Just that this map is identified on the city's website and that it's prohibited, that it can be, under section 1, areas designated as IADU prohibited or residential zoning with IADU potential, where saying these are the types of amendments that could or might come forward that we will look at. And then adding the city engineer as a reviewing entity for this, and then the next section more specifically stipulates what the review will require. And I'll just read through that. The applicant shall submit a report that identifies how the projected number of, we got 2 ofs there, got to get rid of one of them, of IADUs added to the neighborhood may impact density issues, traffic, and infrastructure. The city fire marshal and city engineering staff shall review all IADU map amendment applications and recommend to the city council conditions of approval based on the fire code or engineering standards related to traffic, roadway, infrastructure, or safety issues created by IADUs being allowed in the respective neighborhood or residential subdivision. So we've said before, we're going to review this, staff's going to review it. Well, we didn't really say who and exactly how and why and what. So this is explaining that better. So I think we have good marching orders with this for what staff will need to do, but also what the applicant will need to provide based on, you know, what our review will require. So that doesn't get real deep on the report that the applicant will need to submit as far as exact format or whatever, but I think there can be a lot of varieties or variations based on what development or neighborhood is being represented. So I think we kind of need to leave it at that, at least identifying the areas that they will need to cover in their report. So that's basically it. Any questions?
This is a public hearing, so we'll open this up for the public to comment. We're going to close the public hearing and we'll open this up to the Planning Commission. Commissioner Kilgore.
So my only comment is that of. It's just an edit, and I'm just wondering, so when we make edits like that, do we need to condition it?
No.
Okay, and that's probably why I didn't add, but that was a little bit more substantial, but I just thought, oh, it's an edit, so I didn't do it on the last one, but I could see that if it's a little bit more substantial, we should probably condition it, but, okay, anyway, it's an edit, and that was the only one I caught. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. Commissioner McConkey.
I think this is good change. I do. I appreciate the data and the responses and that were sought for the IADUs and stuff. I feel like we're like paving a new pathway statewide, and I'm interested to see what the different results are from the different communities.
Right, I think maybe in a few years, we'll have more information that we can pull out, but
And it may be
this
10 to 15
information
years.
came from Oregon, came from Salt Lake County, came from the National Planning Organization, so it's like, nobody really has a good handle on this yet.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Commissioner Barton.
I was just going to say the same thing. I know we joke about it being a last time and stuff like that, but it is also new. And so I know it's going to be probably keeping a lot of work for you in the future. So we appreciate it. And again, it's better, and it's getting better every time we look at it. So we appreciate that.
Who knows, might be back again.
And internal ADUs aren't a new thing, but I think using it as a way to deal with moderate income housing, that's kind of new, I think. And so I think that's where a lot of the data is going to be needed. Yeah.
And IADUs continue to be the gift that continues to give us. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Where is it? Motions.
Where is it?
I got it. Based upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move to approve a proposed amendment to Title 19 with the findings and conditions in the staff report dated October 25th, 2022.
We have a motion from Commissioner Barton. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second from Commissioner Kilgore.
Yeah, either one.
What's that?
Either.
Yes.
Okay. And do we have a question on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, on to the minutes, approval of the minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Do we have any edits that we need to turn in? I will.
Just the one. Just the one. Did that get included?
Yeah,
One
we
for
did
yours?
that this morning, right? Or this morning.
Before.
Yeah. That's already been taken care of. So I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to approve the minutes for October 27th, 2022.
I move to approve the Planning Commission meeting minutes for October 27th, 2022.
Do we have a motion from Commissioner Kilgore? Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second from Commissioner McConkey. Any question on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. That passes unanimously. Commissioner comments. We were a small group, but we were busy.
We were busy. I do have a question, and I know this is, can we get some of these questions that we had answered before tonight? Like, I feel like in consideration of like our other applicants and our public and stuff like that, I'm wondering if some of these questions can be answered before tonight. Like, I feel like some of them aren't ones that need to be discussed necessarily, but questions that we could get answered beforehand.
Yes, you can email Sarah or any of the planners that, and I did that with the car wash thing. There was a couple of questions I asked.
So yeah, so I guess that was my thing, is that I feel like 2 hours without public input, because we didn't have, right, on an item that is this, instead of, something that we're getting some feedback from the public, because that usually goes long.
Especially if there's a lot of questions, we would like that, because that gives us time to look at those questions.
And you can look at them and
ahead
come
of the
back with a
meet-
better answer. And
Yeah, so that we're prepared.
Yeah.
So when there's a longer list or a more complicated question, it's actually our preference. Not many people are good right on the spot, So when we have some warning, we do better.
I spent half the day looking at this today, so I didn't have a
I
chance
know
to look at it before.
a very thorough review.
so I just feel like in consideration
That's a
of
good thought.
everybody else, our two that watch, and then, or one if it's, one of our spouses or
It's 8.
something.
It's 8
Right.
people normally,
Right.
I see.
But I think a lot of it too is in considering of our applicants, I feel like they've gone through a huge process and to have things that could be taken care of beforehand that you could even take back to the applicant before tonight, right?
Right.
Because it's the
We-
same kind of stuff
Good
that we could.
idea.
Yeah, even before their submittal, we've had meetings. So we've been meeting with them for probably 6 months. Even before their submittal, we had meetings, and then we've had multiple reviews with them. However, you did catch something that our staff didn't catch. So
Yeah, there's lots
so-
of good in that, absolutely. And I
Right,
think Kevin's, that it's that, look, right?
Yeah,
But
right.
just something that can be taken care of before tonight where,
Definitely.
Yeah.
And then when we know too, if there's something like that you caught that for some reason we didn't catch, we can put it in the conditions. You know what
before
I-
the night, and so we can look at it
I
as well.
realize you guys are on your timelines too, so you might not even be, you said you were reviewing it today, so you might not have had time to do that. But in the cases where you can, if you have questions, we're definitely would love to have them ahead of time.
I can,
I mean, I don't think we want to stifle any kind of discussion, especially because there's not a forum where we can talk about, these are the kinds of things we want to talk about in the code, because we don't think about it until it comes up in an application. So I totally agree with that, but I do think that we should be cognizant of the applicant's time, that if it's an administrative action,
Exactly.
then there are very specific guidelines as to how the planning commission should treat those versus legislative. And that's why I made the comment, we spend 2 hours on an administrative action and like, 10 minutes, less than 10 minutes on a legislative.
Items, yes.
And so because those questions don't arise, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but, it seems like we should be flipping it somehow. And just be cognizant, I think, we should all be cognizant of the fact that if it's administrative, they just simply have to meet code. And of course, we should ask, what does the code mean here? But again, if there is some requirement, if there's some asking, then it means that it might be ambiguous, in which case, if that's the case, then we're done, because it goes towards the applicant.
And I think clarification of the code could be more of just like maybe it's unclear to you, but it's clear to us. So that clarification could come beforehand, right? Where it's not needing to be discussed. Like if there's a question that I have on the code, I could come to you guys, hey, and then if it still doesn't make sense, then maybe it's something that we can discuss. But if it's something that, oh, that makes sense, I don't need to worry about, or something like that. So yeah, I like the clarification side of it. We want to make sure that we're clear, but I think it's something that can be taken care of, try to be taken care of beforehand, right? Where it's just,
I agree.
hey, I don't, this isn't super clear when it comes to our code. And then maybe it does become clear after we've talked to Sarah or, whomever we need to. And then afterwards, if it's not, then it brought up.
there's a couple times I've emailed in before.
Yeah.
It was in the evening, and Kent emailed me back. It was late in the evening. And I'm like, I think I emailed Kent back and I said, hey, I didn't expect you to get back to me. I'm just doing this because I'm reviewing it now. And Sarah was on vacation and emailed me back. And I felt bad because she's on vacation. Anyway, so.
Okay, we're happy to answer your questions, so.
But I agree with Ken. I feel like there needs to be, depending on the type of item that we're going over, there needs to be a lot of, as well.
So feel free to email them and they'll get back to you. And I had emailed about how to enforce it before, and that's why I kind of brought it up. And they gave me some ideas. All right, so
I got a few questions, if that's okay, comments. Are we meeting on December 1st?
So we don't have a meeting on Thanksgiving, obviously, and so we are wondering if on December 1st, kind of to replace that meeting. We only have one meeting in December, and it's early in the month. It's December 8th, I believe. And so we're really hoping you could meet on December 1st, and so then those items could go to our
City Council on
December 6th City Council meeting. We just have one of them we'd like to get on there is the gateway overlay, the locations for those. The council would like those in place as soon as possible. And then if we do have that meeting, we'll probably add some other items.
did you have something?
Sorry, I zoned out. Did you vote on the minute? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Another,
Been a minute. No, I'm just.
you're in another timeline.
So if, are the commissioners that here, can you come to that meeting?
Yes, I think I emailed back that I could.
Okay, so we'll have four of you.
We'll have four of us.
And maybe more, okay.
I
That'd
know
be great. I did have
Commissioner Ryan said he couldn't make
It's
it.
the only one that couldn't, though. Everybody else could. Maybe.
okay, so it looks like we can hold that one.
And then we have a comment from Ken, our community Director?
No, I was just adding in, and everybody else already said it, so.
Oh, okay.
I was just saying we needed to make sure that we would have a
Quorum here,
quorum on
yeah.
the first.
We also had the legislative workshop on growth, housing, and land use this week.
Is that on Tuesday night? When
Oh.
were we there?
Yes,
Yeah.
That was insightful.
yeah.
Oh, it was on Monday night?
Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah, Monday. Yeah.
Yeah.
don't like
I thought
things
it was
on
great.
Monday. I found it interesting that Saratoga Springs, as we've heard before, more than doubled in population since 2010. Utah County population doubled in the past 20 years. Projected growth in Utah County is projected to be 100% by 2060. Projected job growth, did I say that? Job growth in Utah County is projected to be 100% by 2060, 44% in the construction industry, the tech industry, and some other, I didn't write that down. And it got me wondering what kind of jobs we, given those statistics, should be looking at, bringing into Saratoga Springs. If we want people to live here and work here and
Medical.
stuff, but.
Yeah.
Anyway, I found those, with all the traffic issues, well, no wonder we have so many traffic issues with that kind of growth, but anyway, overall it was good. Oh, and there's the website, guidingourgrowth.utah.gov, if I got that correct. It's a website for collecting public feedback and ideas, and they're encouraging everybody to
Oh, yeah, I was
give
gonna
your
talk to, is it
big
Ann
feedback.
who posts on, who does social media for us? Okay, I'll send her a thing. I think that'd be great to have everybody out here try to jump on there.
Yeah,
I'll send
similar
it
to the
her.
general plan, just
Yeah,
keep a bunch of people give feedback. Hopefully it'll make a difference for us.
yeah. I thought that was
So,
great.
that's all. Thanks.
Director's report.
So I do want to let you know, at the November 15th City Council meeting, right? Yeah. No, sorry, November 1st. I'm like, we haven't had the 15th yet. Okay, so at the last City Council meeting, the Gateway Overlay Ordinance was approved, not the locations that will be coming. And then Saratoga Springs Commercial Plat F preliminary plat, so that was one of the lots where the Home Depot is going. And then the Northern Frontier Business Park Development Agreement Amendment, that was related to outdoor storage. Their decision on that was only to amend the development agreement in relation to the vinyl storage site, not all the other sites along that east side of that property. And then they gave them a limit of 15 feet for their storage, and it also required the screening.
What did we say?
You guys had
Vinyl.
recommended that we come to sort of a mutual agreement on the height and
For that
then.
vinyl company.
That's where we voted, half of us voted no and half of us.
So we just kind of punted.
So the city staff had proposed 10 feet and the applicant had requested 20 feet. The council's decision was right in the middle of that at 15. So that was the outcome there. So our next meeting, December 1st, we'll have a couple of items. And then I did want to ask about next year's schedule. Right now, we have Planning Commission every second and fourth Thursday. Sometimes that means that we have council and Planning Commission the same week. I know that's not, I don't think that's a concern, but if Planning Commission were on a different Thursday, like maybe the first, sometimes, not every time, would that impact anybody negatively if Planning Commission was on like the first Thursday or the third Thursday once in a while?
As long as the packet comes out in enough time for us to, because I could only read it on certain days and that's it. I just don't have time. So if all of a sudden we're shrunken down by a week, I need to know way in advance. Otherwise, I just don't have the time to read it.
Yeah, can it not be consistently like that, or is that,
So the packet would still come out.
well, why would we not move it consistently to the first and third instead? Like, I'm just wondering why only sometimes it would be like that.
Because I like the second and fourth.
So it's really interesting. It just depends on what day of the week the first day of the month is, right? So if
Oh,
we,
yeah.
if we always have planning or, so we always have city council on the first and third Tuesday, and then
yes.
we always have planning commission on the second and
Sometimes they fall on the same-
Thursday.
Okay.
And then next year, there's 7 weeks where they fall in the same
Oh,
week.
Okay.
And so we were just looking at, if for some reason it wasn't on the second and fourth Thursday, if that would, with your schedules and everything, if, we're just looking at it. I don't know for sure. It's just a discussion right now.
City council meetings were the first Tuesday after the first Thursday.
Well, so I guess basically we would be saying planning commission would be the second Thursday after the first
of the-
Tuesday.
that's right.
But anyway, it was just, kind of polling if that would create conflict for anybody's schedule.
So I'm okay anytime, as long as I have a weekend before to read the staff packet. I just need that weekend, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd have to look at the
At the dates.
dates,
Okay.
I'm fine with it.
I don't have any other things going on Thursday nights except this.
Yep.
Okay, we're not saying it is changing. We just wanted to get your feedback right now before we finalize next year's schedule.
I would love it actually, only because I would like to attend more city council meetings, and it does get hard sometimes. It's like, oh, I can't, like if we're in the same
If it's
week.
in the same week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, I think, but that, I don't attend all of them, just when I can, and so.
Because at our next, the December, whatever it is, 8th, 9th, whatever, meeting that we're going to have,
Right, that's a
That would-
perfect example, so.
that's when we're going to be approving the next schedule for 2023, right?
Right,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's an idea.
All right.
okay, that was, it might just stay how it is, but we wanted to ask the question.
Do we need to go into a closed session?
We do not.
So we're going to adjourn this meeting, the next meeting going to be December 1st, for sure?
Yes.
So we'll adjourn this meeting until December 1st.
Thank you, everybody.